Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around the virtual water coolers. We talk about our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, all sorts of good stuff. And joining me here today, of course, because it's Thursday, two special guests, one Aaron Cummings and one Joey Bishop.
Hello. I have to say, John, hearing you recite Shakespeare, and not just a phrase or two, but almost an entire soliloquy, just brought a tear to my eye of joy. And so I thank you for that, and will require that every Thursday. I do want to actually say something really quick. You know, sure. Last week was, as you and I were just talking about, a really just awful week, and I think that that was not just for me, but obviously nationally there was a lot of pain, and we both had some personal things going on last week. And randomly, Tom turned on Big.
Oh my gosh.
And, you know, it was funny because I was watching, and obviously I've seen it, you know, however many times, but there's something about watching a movie that you saw many years ago, either as a kid or as a young adult, watching it through the lens of an adult and watching it through the lens of the adult you are today. It really just moved me. And I saw it as an allegory of how much life can just beat you down after, you know, countless heartbreaks and rejection or bullying or, you know, just the things that we go through in life, and that innocence of a child. It really was beautiful. And watching the piano scene in FAO Schwartz really was beautiful. So if you're looking for a pick-me-up and you're looking to just for something that's a little innocent to turn out the news and turn out whatever's going on in your life, I highly recommend revisiting Big.
Do you know that's Anne's all-time favorite movie?
Well, I know that Tom Hanks is her all-time favorite
movie. That's why she took the job at Hasbro. She literally took the job at Hasbro because of Big. That's why she took the when she was at Hasbro. That's why she took the job.
You know that the very first the very first thing that Tom ever bought me, like object, was when he came to visit me in New Orleans when I was filming Astronaut Wives Club. It was the first time he came to visit, and he bought me a stuffed animal, a little bear from FAO Schwartz.
Oh, and the Toy Store, yeah.
And I named him Tommy Bear, and they closed like a month later, and I still have Tommy Bear. I bring him everywhere when I travel. I snuggle with him. I sleep with him every night, as well as the big Tommy Bear. And it's something that I cherish so much because FAO Schwartz is just regardless of whether it is still there or not, it's always going to be an institution because of movies like Big. And listen, guys, movies like Big and other types of movies are what we're here to talk about here today. And we do have a bunch of stuff that we are going to talk about and go into today. But listen, guys, a little bit of housekeeping. Just make sure you guys are aware of this. If you are driving, commuting, at the gym, at work, not the best or most opportune time to pop on the John Campea Show on YouTube, good news, there is an audio-only version. The John Campea Show podcast is available. Look at that, perfect 5.0 rating. You can go and get that podcast now. Subscribe to it on your favorite podcast app of choice, so you can make sure you get your daily fix of the John Campea Show, even if you cannot watch the video at the moment. All right, guys, listen. Before we get into our main topics, there is one off the top that's really kind of exciting and worth talking about. Now, of course, one of the biggest issues going on in the world of movie news, one of the biggest issues, of course, has been the fact that movie theaters are closed down, production's been halted, all that kind of stuff. Now, we've been hearing lately about several high-profile projects being ready to go back into production. Just last week, we talked about how they said Avatar, this week, Avatar 2 is going back into production. The Batman is going back into production. A lot of movie production is starting to ramp up again. That has still left the question mark of the movie theaters. Well, the second largest movie theater operation in the world, Cineworld, which is the company that owns Regal in the United States. So Cineworld and all their theaters, Regal, have just announced that they are going to reopen in July. This word is coming to us from Variety, and it's just worth mentioning a couple of the notes here. So Cineworld, this includes Regal that they have, and it basically says this.
It says the reopening of cinemas would start with the highly anticipated new Christopher Nolan movie Tenet and immediately after the Disney adventure movie Mulan. Cineworld outlined details of its funding because they also have had some financial problems, obviously. But going back to one of the earlier statements, in a statement to investors today, Cineworld says it anticipates government restrictions because they have been in consultation with the local governments. Government restrictions related to cinemas will be lifted in each of its territories by July. Subject to this and confirmation of the schedule for film releases, Cineworld anticipates the reopening of all their cinemas in July. This is, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. This is the news we've kind of been waiting for. Are the movie theaters going to be opening? We've been talking a lot about whether Christopher Nolan's Tenet, he wants to open that movie on the 17th in July. Warner Brothers wants to open it, but are they actually going to be able to? And it's starting to look more and more like they are. Now, we haven't heard any word from AMC Theaters yet, which is, of course, the largest exhibitor in the world. But we heard earlier reports saying that they were indeed targeting July. I expect to hear an official word from there in the coming days now that Cineworld and Regal have come out and made that proclamation. Aaron, I mean, again, the situation going on in the world is far bigger than our little world of movies. But here on the show, we're talking about how it affects our world of movies. There couldn't be bigger news. Like in the world of movies, the possible
major
reopening, having the second biggest movie theater chain in the world saying we are going to reopen in July. I mean, that could change, obviously. There's a lot of time between now and July. Circumstances could change, but for now it sounds like they are targeting, they're going to reopen in July. They're going to be back open for when Tenet and Mulan and things like that are supposed to come out. We heard Bob Chapek, the new CEO of Disney, say a couple of weeks ago that they are holding that Mulan release date. But again, things could change. Aaron, putting into perspective, how big of a deal is this that the movie theater, the second biggest in the world, is now saying we are planning on reopening?
It's a huge deal. It is a really big deal because it's saying, you know what, we're ready. We believe that we have a system in place that can also ensure our guests will feel comfortable. You know, a lot of businesses are slowly starting to reopen. Restaurants or some restaurants are available for outdoor seating or like tables spaced apart from one another. I know that some retail stores are opening up again. And one of the things that I keep seeing in the emails of all the companies is, you know, these are the steps that we are taking to ensure your safety and your comfort. And no doubt with all the work that the movie theater, what is the organization that controls all the movie theaters? NATO. You know, NATO, I have no doubt, has been very instrumental in working with the theaters and saying these are things that need to be put in place, not just to protect our bottom line financially and making sure that people who go to the movie theaters can continue going to the movie theaters, but that people just feel comfortable. You want to go to the movie theater to escape what's going on out there.
Yeah, good
You don't
point.
want to go to the movie theater to be watching, like, I don't want to watch Mulan and the whole time be like, oh my God, somebody coughed. Oh my God, is that person too close to me? Oh my God. You know, I don't want to be a neurotic mess, which is usually par for the course anyway. But I don't want to carry that into my world of fantasy in the movie theater. So I'm looking forward not only to the movie theaters opening, but also to hearing what steps they're actually taking to ensure the safety and the comfort. I do think that it's interesting that they're opening all of their theaters.
Yeah.
It'll be more interesting to hear if there, are any differences in local areas. Because let's be honest, one of the reasons why there's so much divide about this whole situation is because it's affecting people differently. If you live in an area like we do in Los Angeles, which is still one of the top 3 areas for infections and deaths, it's much more of a frightening reality of contracting. Whereas if you live in a very rural area that has had very low cases, it's not as much of a reality. And this is based on my conversations with friends who live in areas like that. So, the same kind of stringent, strict guidelines that might make more sense in an area like New York, like Los Angeles, like DC and Chicago might not make sense in my hometown of Huntsville, Texas, my birth city of Lafayette, Louisiana, where the caseloads are not as high. So it'll be interesting to see if throughout the country there are variations of the guidelines.
And from country to country. Like
absolutely.
Because there are some countries that really seem to have a handle on this whole thing.
Yeah, New Zealand.
Yeah, and others. Now, you bring up an interesting point about we got to make sure that people feel comfortable in the theaters, right? And, one of the things Rob and I have been talking about is that look at the local grocery store. Because I personally feel like you're at higher risk going into a grocery store than you are into a movie theater. But because of the really good way a lot of the grocery stores have been conducting themselves, like you show up, they'll have lineups outside, making sure they have, it's only a maximum number of people inside. You see they have staff outside with Clorox, whatever, wiping down all the carts. They got a staff outside applying hand sanitizer to your hands, all that kind of stuff. So the bottom line is when I then walk into the grocery store, I actually feel pretty comfortable. I feel like I am as reasonably as you can. I feel like I'm being treated by the store itself, that I'm treated. And if movie theaters can replicate that, have maximum seating that you have, stagger the show times, stagger the seating of how far between, stuff like that, make ample hand sanitizer available. Like if they do that, if I can feel comfortable, and not everybody will, I'm just speaking for myself here, but if I can feel comfortable walking into a grocery store, seeing the precautions they're taking, I feel pretty good that I'm going to feel comfortable if movie theaters take the correct steps. And their futures depend on it. So I think greed is going to ensure that they take the right steps.
Greed usually is a very good promoter. It'll get somebody off the couch real quick.
Yeah, no, greed. Seriously, sometimes greed is our friend. And their greed, movie theaters' greed to want to be profitable and make money and be sufficient, is going to direct them. Their greed will make sure they take all sorts of safety precautions.
Right.
And so sometimes it's good to trust greed. The question here for you guys is, what do you think about this announcement from Cineworld and Regal and things like that they are planning now to reopen in July in time for Tenet and Milan? Do you think it's actually going to happen? Do you think it's smart? Do you not think it's so smart? I can see a lot of different arguments on that. Jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. We're going to jump into our main topics here in just a second, but remember, the second half of the show, we take live questions. And how do you get a live question on the show? Well, the way you send in a live question to be read a little bit later on the show, and the best way to support the channel as well, is to go to the tip link. You'll see the tip link in the top of the description of this video. You can just click it, or go to this link, streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your question or comment on the show, and you'll be supporting the show at the same time. So with that said, let's now get to our main topics of the day. How do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with them by going anytime, 24/7, over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's totally free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's move on to main topic number one. And our first main topic today gets sent in to us by Preston Bell, who writes, "Hey, John, love the show and keep up the good work." Thank you so much, Preston. According to Hollywood Reporter, Martin Scorsese's upcoming film, Killers of the Flower Moon, that he has been shopping around to produce, has found a partner, which is Apple. Apple and Paramount are apparently in final talks to collaborate on what is now going to be a $150 million project. That's not true, as a matter of fact. Do you think that the final budget will go over, under? Thoughts? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yeah, we were talking about that. Killers of the Flower Moon. This is a project Marty Scorsese has been trying to get up and running for a bit. It was about $150 million for whatever reason, a period drama piece. I don't know why he needs that much money. But then the budget ballooned to $180 to $200 million, which is freaking ridiculous. It's ridiculous. At any rate, Paramount at that point, for those of you who weren't keeping up to date on this, Paramount at that point said, yeah, no, we can't do that. So even though Paramount had the rights, when Scorsese's budget kept going up and up, they gave Scorsese the permission with his management to go and shop the project around. So go off and shop, they did, and now they have found a partner, and that partner is Apple. Apple is going to be the production company of record, and they are going to finance the film, and it is going to come into around $180 to $200 million from the reports that I'm reading in Deadline. But there is a misunderstanding going around. That misunderstanding is that means that Killers of the Flower Moon is going to end up on Apple TV. It's not. Paramount is still going to be the distributor of the film, and because Marty Scorsese insisted, I told you this, he didn't want The Irishman on Netflix. He did not want The Irishman to go on that way, but that was the only way to get the damn film made. He wanted this movie in theaters, so they've made the deal that Paramount will be the distributor of the film, and it will get a theatrical release. Now, once it's done its theatrical run, then the exclusive place you're going to be able to find this Leo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro, Marty Scorsese film is going to be on Apple Plus TV, which is a good move for them. Aaron, we are talking about a company in Apple that can literally buy and sell Disney 8-10 times over. This is the richest company in the world.
Yeah.
They have nothing but money. So when they want to get established, they can throw all sorts of cash at it and not worry as much as the regular movie studios do about whether we take it. Because Apple right now is not trying to get a hit film. Apple right now is trying to establish their product, Apple TV Plus, as being one of the major players to play down. So they don't care if they lose money on this. They want to build the prestige. Just recently, they signed on that Tom Hanks film, Greyhound, that's now going to be an Apple TV Plus thing. Now they're going to be the producers of this movie that will be in theaters. So they got a lot of money to play with. Listen, kudos to Marty Scorsese. Him budgeting this movie at this is effing ridiculous. And one of the problems that is facing Hollywood today is the outrageous amount of spending on movies. Yeah. That being said, Marty Scorsese got everything he wanted. He got his cake and he gets to eat it too. And hats off, because he got a sucker to pay $180 to $200 million and he gets to still have his movie as a theatrical release, which it will never make money. This movie will never make money.
How can you say that?
Because look at the box office records of his previous films. At a $200 million budget, we're talking about a movie that probably is, after marketing, distribution, the theatrical, he's probably going to have to make close to $600 million. And these period dramas, there are exceptions, but the vast majority of the time, I think we will all agree, the vast majority of the time, they don't make that much money.
Right.
But Apple doesn't really seem to care. So Marty Scorsese, listen, he literally got everything he wanted here. You hear about this whole turn of events. What do you make of this?
Well, first of all, just Apple in general, at some point, and we're not there yet, but at some point I go, when do the laws of monopoly get involved in this? Because Apple is taking over Hollywood. And the fact that they're now in the producing game, they've always produced on a certain level, but this is next level production company. And they really are solidifying themselves as the major player that everyone else has to kind of play catch up to. It's not surprising. I was really excited when I saw that Paramount was involved in this because, Paramount has been struggling for a while. And so and we haven't even really talked much about Paramount because not only their financial problems, but they just haven't really been churning out the product in the way that they used to as one of the biggest players in the game. So I'm excited that Paramount is involved. I was very skeptical at the idea that this was going to go straight to Apple TV. So I'm glad that you clarified that on it definitely having a theatrical release. But I'm going to say something that you might be a little surprised about.
All right.
I really think that the actor salaries need to be the whole setup just is wrong. It's wrong. Because the reason why we have these ballooning budgets is partly for the fact that Leo ain't doing this movie for less than $20 million. Robert De Niro is not doing this movie for less than, now I don't know what their current salaries are, but what happens is when you are an actor and you are not of that level, when you are not a $20 million, Cameron Diaz got $20 million for
and the vast majority of actors are not on that level.
Oh my God, 99.9% of actors are not on that level. And so, yeah, it's amazing. And it's great when Will Smith can ask for $20 million for his movie, as he should, because Tom Cruise is doing it and Leonardo DiCaprio is doing it. They're all doing it. So they're all competing on this very micro level with one another. But what happens is as their salaries go up, that leaves less and less money for everybody else. So all of a sudden, actors who used to be able to make a living, doing their supporting roles as actors, they're really having to try to find more and more work in order to pay their basic bills. What I think should happen on that level is if you are an actor like Leo DiCaprio and you're saying, hey, I'm so famous, I'm the reason why people are going to come see this movie, I bring value to this product, okay, why don't you take less of a salary and more back-end points? That way you can prove your worth. If you think, and your agents think, that the reason people are going to go see that movie is because you're in it, well, all right, then let's see if people actually pay to see the movie because you're in it. And then if they do, then great, you will get paid. You will probably get paid more than what you would make on the front end. But the idea that these budgets have to be so bloated, ripping money away from other potential projects, that could easily be made for far, far less than that, and also paying less money to other actors, other crew people. You got to skim from other areas in order to make those outrageous salaries work with the budget. So this is my plea to any of those $20 million and up actors that are out there watching this. Get some back end points and leave some for the rest of the crew.
The problem, of course, is that Rob and I were talking about this a few weeks ago. The studios over the last couple of years have been more and more tight about handing out points because they caught on that it was costing them more money to give out points. And listen, let's be clear. I don't personally have a problem with somebody taking what somebody else is willing to give them. I like for instance, in the world of sports, I don't mind that a quarterback accepts and takes $100 million deal.
Sure.
I blame the team for giving him a $100 million deal when he's not that good of a quarterback. I'm not saying Leo isn't that good. Leo's, of course, that good. And I will never besmirch anybody who is like, hey, listen, I'm in an opportunity where I believe these guys will give me X amount of dollars. I don't besmirch the person for taking it. I besmirch the company being willing to give that kind of money. Because Brian Dennehy, who just passed away recently, of course, the great character actor Brian Dennehy, marvelous. I remember he was given this thing once and he talked about the specific issue. He goes, I just kind of recognized my career as more and more as these guys I would appear in these movies with, their salaries were getting higher. Mine was getting lower. And I was doing the same kind of roles. And, so that's kind of part of it too. But do you think any other director right now, other than say a Steven Spielberg or a Christopher Nolan, but there's got to be very, very few directors that have the clout that a Marty Scorsese has, that he can go to a studio and say, yeah, I know I agreed to make this movie for this amount, but now I want this amount. And have the studio bow to him and say, okay, well, we release you from it to go and shop it around, but we get to still be it. And then find a partner that says, okay, you want $200 million to make this period drama? Sure, here you go, Marty. There's not a lot of directors that can do that and have that kind of, and listen, I'm not pretending that Marty Scorsese hasn't earned that clout.
Right.
He's Marty effing Scorsese. Of course he has. But I wonder what he thinks about those comic book movies now. Yeah. Anyway, guys, question is, what do you think about this? I take my hat. Marty Scorsese found a way to jump through all the hoops, connect all the dots, and get everything he wanted. The full budget he wants for his movie, all the money that he wants, get somebody else to pay for it, and he's getting it as a theatrical release. He figured, listen, seriously, bravo. That is, not many people can pull that off. And he did. And I tip my hat to him for that. What do you guys think about that? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Christopher Brickner, who writes, HBO Max launched yesterday, and it had a few problems, from not being available on Amazon Fire Stick or Roku, to missing titles people expected, like the original Superman films, to the lack of a really compelling launch title like The Mandalorian. On the positive end, the service does have a large back catalog. So what do you think of HBO Max, and do you think these problems will hurt the service? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yeah, listen, you guys know I have been tremendously excited about the launch of HBO Max. We've been talking about it for a long time. And the more information came out about it, the more excited I would get. We talked about the catalog list last week. We've talked about some of the originals they say they're planning on doing, which we haven't seen anything for quite yet. All that kind of good stuff. Yesterday was the first time I had heard that it was not launching on the 2 largest streaming platforms there are. Roku, which is by far the number one streaming platform, and then Amazon Fire and their Fire Sticks and things like that. Not available on those either. To which I immediately went, wait, what? Because one of you guys wrote into me actually and told me that initially. And I was like, no, that can't possibly be true. Is that real? That can't be real. HBO wouldn't be so dumb as to launch something like this without being available on the largest streaming platforms. Come on. But the problems got worse. Because not only did they launch, then we started hearing all sorts of complaints about the interface. I've heard the user interface is terrible. I haven't seen it yet because I have Roku, and they're not available on Roku. So I started hearing about that. Then we started hearing a lot of the catalog titles that they said were going to be available at launch aren't available at launch. And unlike Disney Plus, who I have criticized because they launched with Mandalorian as a prime marquee original and they didn't have anything after that, they're not launching with any prime marquee original stuff for this. It got so bad. I'm going to read this. I shouldn't, but I'm going to read this. I got a text message last night from a buddy of mine who is a film industry professional, worked on many high-profile big movies that you know and love. And this buddy of mine wrote this to me last night, and he wrote the following. This is the conversation we had. I'm not going to reveal his identity, but I'm going to read you this conversation. He's probably laughing right now because he's probably watching the show. HBO Max is awful. This is coming from a friend of mine who has really also been looking forward to HBO Max. HBO Max is awful. This might go down as one of the worst platform launches in history. I can't even begin to tell you how disappointed I am with it, to which I then replied, ouch. It's not even on Roku, so I can't even try to enjoy it. Then my friend wrote back, that's part of it. How do you launch/rebrand without partners like Roku and Amazon lined up? I was so excited for this because they were promising a Disney Plus-like experience for the Warner catalog, and it just ended up being HBO with Friends, Big Bang Theory, and Rick and Morty added. No 4K support, no additional content aside from the movies itself. There's no shape or purpose it seems to have. Disney Plus is a well-curated library of 100 years of Disney content. HBO Max is a top 40 radio station. I can't begin to explain how disappointed I was. I spent less than an hour with it. It's like New Coke followed by HBO Max in terms of bungled rebranding, to which I then replied, holy crap. Yeah, I was so pissed when I realized I couldn't even try it if I wanted to. What the hell are they thinking? To which my friend then replied again, it's like releasing a blockbuster movie, but not securing any screens in the biggest markets. I just remember when Disney Plus launched, it felt like an event, and we all spent hours just navigating and touring all the content at first. With HBO Max, it's like, yeah, this is all the same shit I had yesterday. Okay, so again, that's not some big industry report. That is just a buddy of mine who just happens to be a high-profile film industry professional, and their response to HBO Max. Listen, and also, you know, Apple TV launched with their main channels kind of thing, and it's not available in there either. There's other ways you can get it, yes, and there are other avenues to get it, yes. But as I look at this, and again, I have to preface this by saying, I haven't tried HBO Max yet because it's not available to me. So maybe I'll try it and I'll love it. Maybe. But Aaron, right now, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, how do you launch so badly? So crazy. Like, we've been talking for a little while that they already have a perception problem with branding, because it's like there's so much confusion of okay, so HBO Now, HBO Go.
Yeah,
HBO
I had
Max.
to have you explain it to me last week.
I've had other people in the damn film industry asking me to explain it to them. That's so you've already got this big problem with branding, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you come out of the gate so unprepared. They have known over there for 2 years that they're going to do this service. How do you come out of the gate? How are you so incompetent that you come out of the gate without being on the two biggest streaming platforms there are, without any messaging for your potential audience to say, hey, here's what's going on? You know who did address it? Roku addressed it.
Yeah.
Here's what Roku said. This comes to us from NBC. As the number one streaming platform, of course, Roku's got to remind you of that. As the number one streaming platform in the US, we believe that HBO Max would benefit greatly from the scale and content marketing capabilities available with distribution on our platform, Roku said in a statement. We are focused on mutually positive distribution agreements with all new over-the-top services that will deliver a quality user experience to viewers in more than 40 million households that choose Roku to access their favorite programming and discover new content. Unfortunately, we haven't reached an agreement yet with HBO Max. While not on our platform today, we look forward to helping HBO Max in the future successfully scale their streaming business. So Roku realizes, hey, the customer is going to want to know what's going on. So we'll address this. HBO Max slinked and snuck around like a thief in the night going, let's launch, but let's not talk about the Roku and that we're not going to be in it. Let's not. They should have been upfront, clear with their messaging, saying, hey, listen, we're planning on being on these platforms. We're not right away, but understand we're working on it. We're going to try to get a deal done, all this kind of stuff. Between that, movies that they said were going to be on there aren't there. They don't have any brand new original programming to launch with. How do you have 2 years? And again, let me say it again. I have not used it yet because it's not available to me. Maybe if I use it, I'll think it's the greatest thing in the world. But on its surface, from the outside looking in, I'm thinking, how on earth do you have all this time to plan your launch and you don't have these deals in place yet? You don't have the content you're promising. And it's feeling more like Quibi. That it's feeling more like a Quibi launch than it is like a Disney Plus launch. And this should be able to rival Disney Plus. HBO Max should be able to rival Disney Plus instantly with their library and with what the access and the resources they have. And it's just, I'm hearing nothing but from people saying they're not happy. So again, I'm saying that as somebody who hasn't tried it yet. Aaron, as a film industry professional, as somebody who works in the entertainment industry.
As someone who has an Apple Plus.
As somebody who has, like.
And has access to it.
What are you thinking about this whole launch? What's your perception?
I have actually seen store openings at malls that have been better coordinated and better publicized than this, which is shocking and sad. Yes, absolutely. They have a branding issue of having 500 different HBOs available and nobody knows the difference between any of them without having to ask someone like you. I am not a trendsetter. I am absolutely, when it comes to the world of electronics, and I like to follow. I like to let somebody else jump in the deep end and find out if there's a shark down there. My mom actually called me yesterday and said, hey, I'm thinking of upgrading my phone. Can you help me? I said, what kind of phone do you have? She said, I have an iPhone 5. Can you tell me what its trade-in value would be? I was like, that would be probably in the negatives. So I am not the person that's going to, even though HBO Max is available to me, like, I'm not the person that's immediately going to go, oh my God, I have to get this because it's available and I just want to navigate it for hours and see what's going on. I did that with Disney Plus because of The Mandalorian.
Right.
Because I knew that everybody would be talking about Mandalorian. I knew we'd be talking about it on the show. I knew that it had to be on my radar and that I had to have seen it. Without any original, I mean, at least Quibi has some original programming.
Yeah.
At least they can say, oh, we have these fun shows that you can watch. That'll be interesting. If they appeal to you, for HBO Max to come out the gate with no original programming and to also be like, oh, we don't need Roku. I also love the slight little dig that was it the president of Roku that gave that quote?
Well, it's their official statement.
Their official statement where they didn't say we look forward to working with HBO Max. They said we look forward to helping HBO Max. And that's such a perfect way of being like, oh, hey guys, great launch. Well done. If you need some help, we're here. But by the way, whatever our negotiations are, they're now going to be a little bit more on our terms because you are now seeing how you probably need our help more than we need your network, your service.
Yeah, and it's too bad too because for months, Rob and I on this show have been like, HBO Max is coming, HBO Max is coming. I've been so excited about HBO Max. It's like all this stuff we've been doing, all these stories on is just like, it just really looks like they dropped the ball. How do you do that? I'm not really clear. Here's hoping they get things going again. Guys, question for you is, have you tried HBO Max so far? If so, what are your thoughts on it? Are you like a lot of people where like, you don't even know what the difference between HBO, Go, Now, Max, what's the difference? Maybe you're one of those people that their messaging is totally confused things for you. Do you even have access to it right now? What are your thoughts on all this? Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, with that down and out of the way, let's now move on to main topic number 3. And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Jack Dries, who writes, the Golden Globes have spoken. Who cares? Inspired by Pedro Pascal's performance as the lead role on The Mandalorian, it was just announced by the Hollywood Foreign Press, which is, of course, the organization that runs the Golden Globes, association group in charge of the Golden Globes, that voice-only performances will not be eligible for nominations during their awards season. What are your thoughts on this? All right. First off, let's be clear. As my father would always say, the Golden Globes are as useless as tits on a bull. They're just completely useless, whatever. But they do exist and a lot of people watch them. And I gotta say, they put on an entertaining show. The Golden Globes,
sure.
Hey, listen, as much as I don't like the Golden Globes, as much as I have no respect for the Golden Globes or hold their awards in any regard whatsoever, I gotta say, their show is something to watch. They put on an entertaining show.
Especially
really
the last hour when everyone is so shit-faced.
It's getting drunk.
And you just pan the audience and they are all just schnockered beyond belief.
It's great. And I've actually said before, I think the Oscars can learn a thing or two from the Golden Globes. Maybe not getting everybody drunk, but that might be fun too.
I mean, the number of empty champagne bottles on the table by the end of the show is hysterical.
But they put on a good show. But anyway, they decided to address an issue because the Mandalorian stuff did bring up a question with Pedro Pascal, a very high-profile, fantastic actor. You never really seeing Pedro Pascal, and really, as we learned in watching the Mandalorian editorial, most of the time it wasn't even him in the costume. Most of the time, there was one. They had two different body doubles. One who was a gunfighter expert who did all the gunfighting stuff. Another was a jiu-jitsu guy who did all the physical combat stuff. And then once in a little while, it would actually be Pedro Pascal in there. But anyway, the issue kind of came up for them in talking about voice only, and because we've seen a number of performances where you don't actually see the actors, but you hear the voices. Scarlett Johansson in Her.
I was just thinking about that last night.
What was an example? There was some talk about, should Scarlett Johansson get a nomination for Best Supporting Actress, even though she was just a voice, right? The Golden Globes have decided to come out and codify this, which I respect, I gotta say. But basically, it says, this is from Variety. Announced by the Hollywood Foreign Press Association on Wednesday, voice-only performances are not eligible in any acting category. That means even if characters are physically in the scenes, actors whose faces are not visible are not eligible in any acting category. In The Mandalorian, which aired last fall, Pascal was in costume and hidden under the helmet throughout the show. Actually, he wasn't in costume throughout the show. 8 episodes first season. I'm going to say something I don't often get or care to say. I've got to give credit to the Golden Globes for this. If for no other reason, because it clarifies what their position on this is. And listen, this is going to be unpopular with a lot of people, but I agree with this decision. Because what I've said the whole time is that what you're doing with your voice as an audience member, I'm speaking as an audience member, what an actor does with their voice is a very important thing, of course, in the performance that I get as an audience member. However, it's only part of portraying the character and the performance of what happens. The physicality, how you act with your body, and being physically there in the screen is another huge part of that. It's like saying, you know, can you win Best Car of the Year if all you have is the steering wheel? You can't function a car without the steering wheel. You need the steering wheel. But can you call it the best car of the year if all you've got is the steering wheel? And that's kind of my feeling on that. Like, the voices are great. It's an important part of it, but it's not the total thing of bringing a performance. And I don't think somebody who only has to do half of the job should be given more credit over somebody who not only does their voice, but also brings the physical manifestation of the performance to the screen. It's just apples and oranges. It's a different thing. And so, and listen, the Golden Globes could have gone very quietly without ever addressing this and just never nominate somebody who only does voice and stuff like that. And that would have been fine. But I gotta say, as somebody who dumps on the Golden Globes and the Hollywood Foreign Press a lot, I gotta say, I respect them clarifying the position, codifying it, putting it down in their rules. And I gotta say, did they have to do that? No, but I kind of agree with it. Aaron, you and I have not talked about this, but as an actress, what are your thoughts on that move by the Golden Globes?
I agree with you. It is wonderful that they came out before a lot of the other awards organizations and said, this is where we stand. You guys can do whatever you want to do, but this is our policy, so that it really establishes them as the leader at this point versus them as, following whatever whatever the Academy is going to do. Considering the fact that the Screen Actors Guild, which obviously has the prestigious SAG Awards.
And you are a part of.
Which I am a part of, yes. Have been for 20 years. The fact that the Screen Actors Guild, the SAG Awards, do not consider voice acting and motion capture acting to be considered for their awards. And this is an organization that is run by and made up of nothing but actors. That also says a considerable amount of even where actors feel that voice actors and motion capture actors belong. I will say this, if and when the time ever comes where there is an Academy Award or any other sort of award for voice acting and motion capture, it would be a crime if Andy Serkis did not immediately win an honorary award, not only for his performances in The Hobbit, in King Kong, in Return of the Planet, one of the 8 movies. All the 8 movies. But also for his incredible advocacy in order to bring awareness to the rigors and to the challenges of a motion capture performance. What I don't understand is, the Saturn Awards, which are phenomenal awards, very well respected.
Rob has a couple of those.
He does.
Rob has a couple of Saturn Awards, yes.
I have been to the Saturn Awards, also very entertaining award show. The Saturn Awards specifically are for the genres of fantasy, science fiction, and horror, which are all genres that specifically incorporate voice and motion capture performances, which are very technical and not something that most actors can do. I like your analogy with the car. I would reverse it though. I think that the performance without the face is the car without the steering wheel. The steering wheel being the face and all that. But you look at Andy Serkis and what he did in all those movies that we've said, Scarlett Johansson, but also our perception of Scarlett Johansson's performance was absolutely part of her performance and what she gave. She was brilliant. Yeah. But also we have to give credit to Joaquin Phoenix because Juliet in Romeo and Juliet was never supposed to be a beautiful woman. If you ever see a performance of Romeo and Juliet is stunningly gorgeous, it's wrong. We believe that she is stunningly gorgeous because of the way that Romeo sees her. Behold what light when yonder, that whole thing. And so similarly, the way that Joaquin saw her, we saw her through his eyes. So I want to give credit to Joaquin for his performance in that. But, you look at Benedict Cumberbatch in The Hobbit. Yep. There's a great YouTube video of him actually doing with the motion capture suit on, even though they didn't use his body, he physicalized it so much that it really is, like you said, a completely separate type of performance. When I was studying in London, we had classes when you go to acting school, there's movement classes. I had a class where literally for an entire week we had to be fire, and then the next week we had to be water, and then all the elements. Every time you're in a class, they go, okay, well, what animal would your character be? And a person moves differently if they are a snake versus if they are a panther, versus if they're a bull, And so these types of performances require a very, very different type of acting, and usually classically trained actors are better suited for this. What I would love to be introduced is for the Saturn Awards, who specifically work in this world, to introduce best performance by a motion capture artist, and have that as an award, establish that in the Saturn Awards, which I think would very easily transition into acknowledgement by the SAG Awards, which I think will then very easily transition into the other awards. I think we're close, but if anybody out there is with the Saturn Awards, I would love to see that as a Saturn Awards.
I think one of the things that is a roadblock to that right now is that when you look at, say, a category cinematography, there's 1,000 potential qualifying nominees per year. When you look at best performances, there's 1,000 potential qualifying nominees per year. How many motion capture, how big is even the pool right now for motion capture? Is it too small of a pool?
That's a good point.
That's a roadblock right now, but as technology advances, that could change in the future.
I mean, look at the entire cast of Avatar. Well, not the entire cast, because we obviously do have some live, but when we go into the world, I think that you're right. As we continue to have films increasing the technology and the capabilities and the cost effectiveness, frankly, of doing motion capture and CGI, it is definitely a conversation that I think will continue and will only evolve and expand. But I absolutely agree. You just cannot compare a live action performance with the performance of someone who then is going to have their face digitally covered and all of their facial responses. I remember Winona Ryder once said about Angelina Jolie after Girl Interrupted, she said she has this incredible ability to make her capillaries explode on cue, talking about how Angelina Jolie just has this ability to get flush and change the color of her face, on at a whim. And so that's something that if you are a motion capture actor, no matter how much, you're just never going to see that, even if it's physically happening in real time. There's so many other layers that go into creating that whole performance.
This is weird because I've had a little bit of a different perspective on it in that, when you look at what Andy Serkis has done, I actually made an argument with his last Apes movie, the last one that he did. His performance in it was so, and you watch all the behind the scenes stuff of it's him, right? I made the argument at the time. And I might have a few different perspectives on it now, but basically at the time, though, my thought was everything that you see in Caesar is Andy Serkis's performance. He's got all the motion sensors on his face, his facial expressions, his movements, his voice, clearly, blah, blah, blah. And I remember me and John Schnepp had this conversation once, and I remember asking at the time, at what point, now this is different from voice-only actors versus actors who do a full motion, but at what point do we look at motion capture as just a digital version of a costume? Because we have actors who put on costumes that tailors make, apply their makeup to make them look a certain way, do their hair to do a certain way. At what point, and again, I'm not saying I have a hard position on this, I don't, but I remember at what point I was thinking, at what point do we say, okay, all that's different here is that instead of a physical costumer coming in and putting this costume on Andy Serkis, we have a digital artist coming and putting the costume on Andy Serkis, but it's all his movements, it's his expressions. And I'm just wondering, when do we get to that point where like CGI embodiment, like Josh, why am I forgetting on the guy who played Thanos? Brolin. Like Brolin in playing Thanos, right? Like Thanos, he did all the motion capture. You even you saw his face.
Yeah, he looks like Thanos.
Right? At what point do we just say that, if you are truly fully physically doing the motion capture, and it's not just doing the voice and then animators do it all later, at what point do we say that's just a costume? And I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. I'm not saying we're there yet, but
that's why I think it would be its own category, because I would compare Andy Serkis's performance as as Gollum to a Josh Brolin performance as Thanos. Those two are comparable. Those two could be in a category together, and you go, okay, well, between these two performances, which one would be deserving of the award? But to compare, his performance in that versus whoever's performance, in a live action film, yes, it may be Andy Serkis's facial expressions, but it's not the tear that comes down, you know what I mean? So it would be similar to comparing a theatrical performance, like in a theater, a live theater, a play, to a performance in a film. They require completely different skill sets.
That's a good point. Question here is, guys, what do you think about this move by the Hollywood Foreign Press and Golden Globes? I actually got to say, I respect it. I kind of do, but I could see an argument being made against it. What do you guys think? Jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's now move on to our fourth and final main topic today. And our fourth and final main topic today gets submitted to us by Oscar Ching, who writes, John, finally, our biggest dream came true. Not quite, but we're getting there. Both Deadline and Variety are reporting that Henry Cavill is in talks to play Superman again. The only problem, it's not going to be in a Man of Steel sequel, but another DC film. I wish this could be another solo movie, but who cares? Seems like Cavill is going to once again be Superman. What are your thoughts? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And the timing couldn't have been more perfect. Yesterday, I launched an editorial video that took us like a week to make. It was on the case for Man of Steel as the most underrated comic book film of all time. We launched that yesterday, And as we were launching it, news came out that Henry Cavill. It's almost as if somebody in the studio called me a week ago and told me that Henry Cavill was going to be Superman again. That's not what happened. But some people were asking me the questions like, you must have known. I'm like, I totally didn't know. How do I feel? No one remember. How do I feel about this guy? Hello, John. Hello, Henry. It's how do I feel about this guy maybe possibly coming back as Superman? Are you effing kidding me? I mean, look, it's what I've been wanting forever. It's what I've absolutely been wanting forever. Of course it is. Now, of course, there were a lot of reports that came out about, they weren't going to move in the direction of Superman anymore. They were moving away from Superman. They weren't going to use Superman, blah, blah, blah. And apparently, and actually, I know for a fact that was the truth. But as in life, things change. And now they have somebody else is in charge. Now there's new sheriffs in town over there, and they're entering into conversations. Of course, there is one big problem. First of all, let's go to the official report. This comes to us from Deadline, who writes, while there is not a Man of Steel sequel in the works, that's unfortunate, we're hearing that Henry Cavill is in talks to reprise his role as Superman. This is an important thing to clarify. He's in talks. No deals have been done. No contracts have been signed. So a lot of people very excitedly, and believe me, I share the enthusiasm, writing me, did you hear it's official? Henry Cavill's back as Superman. He's not yet. Hopefully it's coming, but it's not yet. Let's be a little bit more tempered than that. Henry Cavill's in talks to reprise his role as Superman in the Warner Brothers DC universe. We hear that Cavill could come back in a couple of different ways, but not a standalone film. But there are plans to bring him back in the big red cape again, sources with knowledge tell us. Warner Brothers is not developing a Man of Steel sequel. And Wonder Woman 1984, Suicide Squad are in the can already, so they've already been shot, so it's not going to appear in either of those. And Superman is not expected to make a cameo in Matt Reeves' The Batman. Other projects where Cavill could make a cameo are Shazam 2, Dwayne Johnson's Black Adam, or Aquaman 2, which are the next productions. All right, so obviously, first thing to get out of the way, of course I am bloody excited about this. It's Henry Cavill as Superman. Henry Cavill is my all-time favorite Superman. I believe Man of Steel is one of the greatest comic book films of all time and the most underrated comic book film of all time. And if you have not seen my editorial that I put up on that yesterday, do go check it out. Warning, it is 27 minutes long, but hey, it's worth every single second. So of course I'm excited about that. With that out of the way, what I have kind of been told is that this all started with the fact that there was an idea of incorporating Superman into another story. So there's going to be another Superman. We are going to see Superman in the DCEU again within the next couple of years. And that it's going to be Superman whether it's Henry Cavill or not. So that's what I've been told. What I've been told is they're in talks with Henry Cavill, but if they can't come to an agreement with Henry Cavill, or Henry Cavill doesn't want to do it, or for whatever reason, and I haven't heard anybody tell me he doesn't want to do it. I'm just saying that even if it's not him, it's going to be somebody. They're going to have somebody play Superman. Obviously, the best case scenario is that it's Henry Cavill himself. I am cautiously optimistic, because obviously what I want is a Man of Steel 2. That's what I want. But I'm fine with another Batman versus Superman type of film. I'm fine with that too. Where I get a little bit nervous, where I get just a shade bit nervous, is because of the horrendous, disrespectful, awful, vomitous way that CW, which is a Warner Brothers company, has treated the Superman character, who is the granddaddy of all superhero characters. They have treated the Superman character with such disrespect that it makes me a little bit nervous. I'm just saying a little nervous. That's all. I'm not freaking out. Just a little bit cautious, a little bit nervous when I hear now that, hey, yeah, let's bring back Superman, but instead of putting him in his own movie as the king of all fucking superheroes, anyway, instead of bringing him back in his own movie, instead of giving him a standalone, instead of giving him a feature, let's slip him into Aquaman 2. Let's slip him into Shazam 2, and let's slip him in here or there. I'm okay with that in principle. If it wasn't for the CW experience, and I understand that the direct people involved and in charge of the CW and what direction they do with their characters are different from the people who would be making the decisions in the movies. I understand that. That's why I'm not freaking out. I'm just cautiously a little bit nervous about it. Is that what my fear is that they bring in Superman just to make him look stupid, to make the other title character of a movie look good. Look, if Superman comes in to help out Aquaman, awesome. If you bring in Superman as this like the way he's portrayed in Shazam is like, oh, it's Superman. You want to treat him like that in a Shazam 2? Awesome. If you want to bring him into, what was the other one? Black Adam, and have him maybe be a force that inspires Black Adam to kind of change his direction a little bit. Awesome. All three of those scenarios to me work and could be fantastic. And I will salivate till there's a puddle on the floor at the idea of Henry Cavill coming back to do that. However, if they just want to bring Superman back, it's like, you know what? I don't think people take Aquaman seriously enough. Let's bring in Superman so Aquaman can kick his ass and make Aquaman look really good. And they go, you know what? We gotta show that Shazam is more than just the kid Billy Batson anymore. Let's have him get into a fight with Superman and have him beat up Superman. Then everybody will love Shazam. If they do that, the bounds of my rage, my nerdum fanboy rage will be limitless. Would be absolutely limitless. But let's assume
that would be a standalone video.
That would be a standalone video on its own. But let's assume for a moment, Aaron, that they have the best of intentions here. The idea is, you know what? We think we have Superman in such high regard and high respect. We think he would be such an addition to a Aquaman movie or a Shazam or a Black Adam, where he brings something to the movie, and we will treat him in those movies with the reverence and respect that a character like that of Superman deserves to be treated. We're not going to treat him as a jobber like they did on CW, blah, blah. This can work great. And that is what I'm going to move forward believing they're going to do. Still a little bit of fear, still a little bit of trepidation, because this character right behind me here, guys, this character deserves all the respect in the world. So I'm a little bit nervous, but also hopeful and optimistic at the same time. So anyway, Aaron, you hear about this, the possibility of bringing back Henry Cavill. I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that he was such an ugly son of a bitch, he might have an actual successful career in this business. Right. But you hear about Henry Cavill coming, possibly coming back. What are the first thoughts you have?
Well, number one, I just have to share with everyone out there that no matter where I sit in the studio, Henry is always looking at me just like this. He's always...
That's directly in your eye line right
literally,
now.
This is what I'm staring at. I look up and Henry's just like giving me those eyes. And I'm like, you need to relax, Henry, over there, you cardboard cutout trying to seduce me. But no, I absolutely agree with you, because what CW did in that scenario was theoretically the idea of, oh, let's pump this character up and make people think that this character is so great because they're actually beating this other character who's supposed to be, you know, amazing and everything. Is they're not building that character up, because they're actually contradicting who Superman is. Like, there is a history of who Superman is. So if you put Superman in somebody else's project and have him all of a sudden not be the guy that we know who is going to save the day, who is going to win the fight, who is going to rise up and be the inspiration, then it just doesn't even track. You're like, but then that doesn't even really seem like it's Superman, you know? It almost seems like they're just taking a departure while trying to establish one character by taking apart another character. So I think that was definitely not a smart move on the part of CW, or smart move or not, it doesn't matter. It didn't track for me. It didn't track for you. It didn't track for a lot of people. I don't think that the film world is going to, I just don't think that they do the same, that they're going to go the same route. They've always seemed to hold Superman in the regard that the audience expects. What I first thought when I read that he was possibly going to put the cape back on was, oh, this is for the Snyder Cut reshoots. That's what I thought. Like, immediately, like, I went home after last week's show and I immediately said to Tom, I was like, oh, you know, Snyder Cut, blah, 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 and this is going to go on. And, you know, I bet they're going to do some reshoots. And he lost his damn mind. He came at me like fanboy on the computer. He was like, "Oh my God, Aaron, Henry Cavill has said that he's never going to put the suit back on, and that's not going to happen. And how dare you?" I was like, do you need to talk to a manager? Like, calm down. He was very upset with me for suggesting that Henry Cavill was going to put the cape back on when he has said many times that he was done with that. So I don't know. I kind of thought, oh, well, maybe they've said that it's not going to be his standalone film. They haven't leaked any ideas of how he could make an appearance. Maybe this could be the thing that really ignites a new level of excitement for the Snyder Cut. Is not just, oh, we're going to take pre-existing footage and cobble it together, in the way that he is not going to take the pre-existing footage and cobble it together, but that he's also going to maybe add additional footage that he would have wanted to shoot had he stayed on the project.
Apparently,
longer.
that's not the case. There was also an interview just came out today with J.K. Simmons, who plays Commissioner Gordon, and he was talking about how all the actors had to be consulted if they can do a recut of this thing. And J.K. actually said there were no planned reshoots. It's all going to be done from the stuff they have. There might be some additional recording done, but again, it's over a year away, so that could change. But as of right now, they're saying there's no new shooting being done. It's all post-production stuff at this point. But things
I'll believe
can change.
it when I see it.
Things can change.
I'll believe it when I see it. I would put my money on some reshoots. I put my money on it, and I don't have a lot of money, so there you go.
So I mean, hey, listen. Anything to give me more Henry Cavill is great. I just want to make sure, again, you have to forgive me. I'm a little bit nervous about it because of the way they have mistreated the character. I thought they treated the character great in movies, but I'm very nervous about the way they treat the character on TV. If they use him as a way to bring additional stuff to Shazam 2, Aquaman 2, Black Adam, and use him to elevate those movies, I'm all for it. But oh my God, if they use him just to get his ass kicked and make him look bad so they can make other characters look good, I'm going to be upset. As a fan of Henry Cavill's Superman, I'm going to be a little bit upset. Question here is, guys, what do you think about that? I'm sure some of you will have some comments to make on that. Jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, we're going to move on to your live questions part of the show. And once again, if you want to send in a live question or tip, you can send in your question to get read, and you'll be supporting the channel at the same time. Go on over to streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You can find the link in the top of the description of this video below. Go on and start firing that stuff in. But for now, Aaron and I are going to do what I do every day here on the show. We're going to take just a short, quick break here for a couple minutes, rest the vocal cords, stretch the legs, go refill our drinks, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to give Joey Bishop is at my feet and has been licking my feet. So she's been trying to get my attention. I'm going to pet her a little bit. So hang tight with us, guys. Aaron and I will be right back. Guys, thank you so much for your patience and indulgence as we took a little bit of a break there. And now let's get on and start taking your live questions. And we're going to start things off here with a question from Star Wars Rocks, who writes, so apparently HBO Max will actually be coming out in Europe in 2021. Coincidence? I think not. Same year as the Snyder Cut is coming out. Absolute 1000% coincidence. That has nothing to do with it whatsoever. And by the way, 2021 is a big year. It's a full year, as a matter of fact. So no, it's absolute coincidence. I mean, the real big question is why didn't it launch now as opposed to, in 2021? So I absolute coincidence, nothing to that. Oh, they're excited about it, but it's a coincidence, make no mistake. All right, Patrick writes, greetings from Switzerland, John and Aaron. Today is a good day. We have only had 10 to 20 new infections a day for the past 7 or 8 days, which is incredible. Wow. So earlier today, the Swiss Federal Council decided on the third phase of opening the country. And as a part of that third phase are the movie theaters. Needless to say, I am very excited and can't wait to get back in there and enjoy a movie. There will be safety measures, of course, and I am now curious to see what movies are going to show. Stay safe, guys, which is, of course, this is the holy grail of what we've all been hoping for and wanting, right? With the movie theaters open now, of course, the question is, what do you open with? Well, you open with library content. Are a ton of people going to flock back to the theaters to go see library content? Maybe not, but you've got to at least get the wheels moving again. You got to shake off the rust. You got to let some people get back into the habit of going back to the movie theaters. So you play a Star Wars film, you play one of the Avengers movies, you play Harry Potter, you play Lord of the Rings, do something to go back in there.
Pirates of the Caribbean, those big movies that need to be watched on a big screen to be enjoyed.
Yeah, so why not go back to those? And now granted, I agree, Aaron, we're not going to see droves of people rushing out to theaters to watch Pirates of the Caribbean again on the big screen, but some people will, and I think the value in it is just to shake off the rest. Plus, without a lot of people coming into the theaters initially, that gives movie theaters a tremendous opportunity to start practicing those new regulations they're going to have, those new safety measures they're going to have. It really gives them an opportunity to practice. Let's get everybody's hands sanitized. Let's make sure we have our theater cleaning protocol down. Let's make sure we have our concession stand protocol down. It's a really good opportunity, and I think it'll be beneficial to all of them to get these things opened again before the day Tenet opens.
Yes, for sure. Absolutely. I'm curious about when New Zealand is going to open up, because like I said, they've been doing so well.
They've been doing well.
I'll have to check and see what Cinderella has said.
Well, I mean,
that's her nickname.
No, they've already announced they're opening the theaters there. Dubai just announced this week they're opening their theaters again. So and then of course Cineworld has said they're doing it, but that's not coming till July. So we'll see. All right, next up, Canada Rocks also writes, at first I thought the Snyder Cut was a raw, inedible apple pie that just needed to be baked. After all this new information, it's really just a bunch of sliced apples and a cookbook. That's actually a much better analogy than my apples to watermelons analogy. That's
your
a good
apples to watermelons analogy made no sense.
My apples to watermelon analogy was perfect. Y'all just didn't get it.
You didn't get it. That's
apples
the problem.
Are one thing. Watermelons is something completely different.
But
anyway,
apples can become an apple pie. Apples can never become a watermelon.
Actually, I think that whole analogy of what was actually in the bag was a bunch of apple slices in a cookbook. That's actually
that's pretty good.
That's a pretty good analogy. It's just a bunch of apple slices in a cookbook. Feel free to use that. Good analogy, John. I kid, but watermelons, it's something completely different from apples. Everybody get off my back about them. It was a good analogy. It's a good analogy. All right, Luis writes, everybody, Snyder Cut, Snyder Cut, Snyder Cut. Me. So about that Green Lantern show. Yeah, listen, that is one of the things that a lot of people have then overlooked. It was, remember, a number of months ago, they announced that they were going to get this Green Lantern show going. We've heard nothing about any movement from it. And damn, wouldn't it have been nice if HBO Max launched with at least one premiere, new piece of content? Wouldn't have that been great? Green Lantern could have filled those shoes pretty good, but clearly they're not there yet. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that a Green Lantern show isn't going to happen on HBO Max. Obviously not. They're saying that it is. I'm just saying I'm not 100% sure that it will. I'll believe it when they go into production. I'll believe, but that is one thing that people should be excited about, because the idea of a live action like HBO Max Green Lantern show, I think is very potentially exciting, and I do hope they stay on track with that. Willow writes, the reason why I don't like the apples, more people give me a hard time about the apples and watermelons. It's a good analogy. They're two different things. Anyway, the reason I don't like the apples and watermelons analogy is because an apple is not an incomplete watermelon. Well, that's true.
Oh my God, that's I feel like that should be on a bumper sticker.
An apple
is not an incomplete watermelon.
That's how famous I am. People will make.
So if you're an apple,
stickers.
You can become an apple pie, and that's what you should strive for. But you're never going to be a watermelon.
That's why what Will also writes goes on to say, I think that Aaron's apple pie analogy is absolutely more fitting. I'm not saying it's not a good analogy.
Thank
yes,
you,
the
Willow.
apple pie is a good analogy.
Thank you, Willow.
Brett Rohrer writes, hey guys, while I'm stoked to get HBO Max for free through Spectrum and I'm happy with a lot of it, I'm disappointed with a couple of things. Number one, it's not currently on Fire or Roku devices, which is how 69% of streamers receive content. So far, I'm finding some of their original content missing, which is confusing. No Tales from the Crypt, Dream On, or Real Sex. I guess I'm not bringing on the filthy. Not to mention that, no Superman movies. Like, not Man of Steel, no Superman movies, not all of the Hobbit films. I think the Desolation of Smaug is missing. There's a whole bunch of things missing, and I'm just hearing from a lot of people this morning. And again, I have not used it myself yet. Let me be clear about that. Maybe once I use it, once they make it available on Roku, maybe once I'll use it, I'll love it. Who knows? But I've been getting a lot of complaints from people about it so far. So yeah, man, it's not, I'm sure it's not it's not as disastrous of a launch as say Quibi was, but here's hoping that they are able to right the ship and get things moving in the direction they want to go in.
Wait, Tales from the Crypt and Real Sex are not going to be on HBO Max?
I don't know if they're not going to be on HBO Max, but he's saying that they're not there right now.
I would actually I really enjoyed both of those shows. I was watching Real Sex way too young, which should tell you a lot about how my life was lived. But I definitely would be. Are they going to have Fraggle Rock? Do they have Fraggle Rock?
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, because you know that my childhood suffered because we did not have HBO, so therefore I was sheltered from being able to watch Fraggle Rock, and therefore suffered.
So when I say to you, dance your cares away, worries for another day.
No, see, I know that is from Fraggle Rock because all of my friends would sing it, and then I didn't know the words to it, which is why my childhood was troubled, and I had, and I suffered indecencies and indignities that no one else has ever had to face. It's the word. No,
first world problems.
I would do that. Yes, first world problems. Exactly.
All right, next up, let's see. Eric DeRiggi writes, I saw this movie in theaters a year before my son was born, and I don't care what anybody else says. I saw a different message in the movie, and that's why this movie is a must-watch every Father's Day. Kevin Costner, you're talking about Man of Steel. Kevin Costner and Russell Crowe were perfect casting. Listen, again, it's just that I've been droning on for 7 years about every time Man of Steel comes up. It's one of the greatest comic book movies ever made, most underrated comic. So I thought I'd finally put it down into a longer form, deeper dive piece about why I feel that way about it. If you haven't watched the video yet, and it's up on my channel now, it's called The Case for Man of Steel. It's not trying to convince, if you don't like Man of Steel, it's not trying to convince you to like it. Not at all. A film's subjective. If you don't like it, you don't like it. But I wanted to at least lay out why that movie is so special to me and why it impacted me in a way that's different from the way it impacts a lot of other people. So even if you don't like Man of Steel, here's hoping that maybe gives you a little bit of a perspective on it about, see certain things that maybe you didn't see before. It won't make you like the film, but maybe you'll appreciate the video. Anyway, I agree with you. The father-son stuff in the movie was absolutely remarkable, Eric. And in my video, I go into a whole section on that father-son dynamic between both fathers and Cal and what it means. So I completely agree with you, Eric. I really do. All right, James L.H. writes, hey, John, I've been enjoying and contributing to some fundraising series on YouTube. Taika Waititi and friends reading Ronald Dahl's James and the Giant Peach has been fun. Also, Josh Gad. This is really cool what Josh Gad's been doing. Reunited, latest being the Splash Crew, and his next one is with the Lord of the Rings cast. I heard about that. So I don't know if you saw this, but Josh Gad has been doing these like Zoom getting reunions of movies together to raise money.
Well, I follow Liv Tyler, and I saw that she had posted some things of their reunion.
Of course, and one of the big ones they just said Josh Gad's getting the Lord of the Rings cast back together again. Who's going to be there? I don't know, but that sounds very exciting to me. And by the way, a really cool, productive use of this time to raise money for charities and stuff like that. Excellent use of time, and just well done, Josh Gad, for that. And I'm looking forward to that Lord of the Rings one. All right, next up, Russell Amador writes, hey, John, some of the best news I've heard in a while, movie-related, has been sent down from the heavens, or in this case, Deadline, as they're reporting that Henry Cavill's in talks to reprise his role as Superman. Now we're talking, DC. Again, I'm just going to, for now, hope for the best. I'm just going to, for now, choose to believe that they're going to bring him into one of these other movies to elevate the movie. without needing to knock Superman down a couple of pegs in order to do it. I'm just going to believe that that's what their approach is going to be. And as such, I'm very, very excited. Any excuse to get this guy back on screen as Superman is good to me, just as long as they don't do what CW did and job the Superman. Don't do that, and we'll have no problems. And then on that, so I'm going to choose I'm not going to do that, and that's going to be awesome. Here's hoping, fingers crossed. All right, Orange Hand writes, "Hey, John, hope you're well. I am well, thank you. For your next editorial video, you should address a major issue you've talked about a lot. Studios spending too much on movies. I'd love to hear an in-depth perspective on why they spend so much and what should be done to fix it." Thanks a lot for that. Here's the funny thing, Aaron. I've done the last week and a half, I've done 2 major editorial videos. One was on explaining why I, a fan of all the Disney Star Wars movies, did not like the last one, The Rise of Skywalker. And then the one I just did on Man of Steel. Those were 2 issues to me, though, that I feel like I've talked about ad nauseum, and I just needed to go into a deep dive about why I felt that way. Here's the thing about those editorial videos, though. They take a long time to make. It literally takes me days to write the scripts for those. And then I've got to record them. And then once the script is written and I actually do the recording, and I do the audio processing and I edit all the audio, I then send that over to Jonathan. And then Jonathan, it takes him days to gather all the images, because by the end of it, it's probably hundreds of images, edit everything together and all that kind of stuff. Because these editorials of mine, they're not like 3 minutes long. They're like 20 to 30 minutes long. And I'm very passionate about Star Wars, and I'm very passionate about Man of Steel. So that's why it was worth it to me to do those editorials. I don't want to give the impression that I'm going to start doing one of these editorials, like 2 of these editorials a month, because number one, they just take way too much time. They take so much time to make, and they don't get enough views to justify it. I mean, if Man of Steel got like 250,000 views, well, okay, great. Then it's worth it for me to do more of those. And I will do more in the future, but it's probably going to be one like every 3 or 4 months. I'll do editorials like this. It just so happens that I did a couple in the last week or so, but it's so labor intensive to make those damn videos.
And I'm glad that you're talking about that. I think that there's a lot of people, I mean, no matter what anyone does for a living, anyone who doesn't do that thing there's probably going to be people that are like, oh, that's so easy. Anybody could do it. I mean, whether you're a professional baseball player or you have a YouTube show or you're a teacher, there's always somebody that's like, nah, it's not that hard, because what they're seeing, the final product, is polished, it's put together, it's, oh yeah, anybody could do that. Well, if anybody could do it, everybody would do it. And so I'm glad that you talk about the process of what actually goes into it, that you do sit down and you take the time to write out a script and to make sure that what you're saying that you can back up what you're saying with resources, and then that you take the time to really thoroughly edit it and work on all of the the technical pieces of it. And then all the back end work that Jonathan has to do. A lot of people, I don't want to say a lot of people, I'm sorry. There are some people that when watching a final product just go, oh yeah, that looks so easy. Well, that's the hard part, is making it look so easy. I mean, similarly to, I think that it was, I forget who, I don't want to say, it was Madeline Kahn, the late great Madeline Kahn, who said, everyone thinks that what we do, comedy specifically, is so easy because we work really, really hard to make it look so easy. So I'm glad that you touch on that. And I think it's really inspirational for people out there who are thinking about starting their own channels and coming up with their own content, that when they get hit with, oh my gosh, this is a lot of work. Yeah, it's a lot of work. Just keep going. Expect that it's going to be a lot of work. Expect that it's not going to be easy. And then keep going.
It's funny because I had a few people write into me and say, oh, so, a report comes out that Henry Cavill may be back, so you put up a video about Man of Steel. It's like, you do know it didn't take me 20 minutes to make this video. You do know this took days. I've been planning this for over a week. Know it took a long time. But it comes across that it can just be made really quick.
Sure.
But I mean, that is the impression of it, though. That's the impression of it. So I don't know that I'll do an in-depth dive onto the expenses, whatever. I'm not going to take 2 or 3 weeks to research it and do a thing like that. It's got to be something I'm particularly passionate about. But, well, I'll make more in the future, just not at the rate that I've been doing them lately. But thank you for that, Orange Hand. I appreciate that. All right, an anonymous viewer writes, hey John, been a fan since the AMC days. Thank you so much, man. These past few months have been really hard on me. I lost one of my best friends and then this virus hit. Your show has helped me through some hard times, so thank you for all that you do. It means a lot to me. And I'm assuming this is B-Bunk who writes, my question is, with all the streaming services out now, what do you think will happen with cable TV as we now know it? Again, thanks for all that you do and your team does. It means a lot to a lot of people. Well, thank you so much for that, man. I really appreciate that. It's an honor and privilege to be here every day, to be a part of the film fan community. So thank you for that, man. I appreciate it. What's going to happen to cable television? You know, a lot of discussions have been going around, Aaron, about, you know, what will all these streaming services mean for movie theaters? And I think one of the parts that Robert and I have been trying to tell people a lot is that it's not so much the movie theaters. It's really cable TV. Cable TV are the ones that are going to be facing some diversity over this. A lot of people are cable cows, but at the same time, a lot of people still watch a lot of cable TV shows. But like somebody like me, I've been a cord cutter for almost 10 years now. But one of my things on Roku is YouTube TV, which guess what? My YouTube TV gets me most of the networks that I watch. So I can still watch cable television. It's just the industry of cable television is heading for a major paradigm shift. Again, I don't think it's heading for elimination.
Right.
I think it's heading towards a major shift. What that shift is going to look like, I think is still in the early stages of taking form. But I think like the network television is still going to be around for a very long time. It's just going to look a little. What do you see coming down the road for that?
Well, you know, I remember when the reality television wave started to just tsunami over scripted television, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, we're never going to see another 1-hour drama," and everybody was all freaking out about that. And what came out of that was television that was so exciting and interesting, and then it also birthed like that desire for something besides reality television really helped to birth. It wasn't the singular factor, but it certainly helped to push forward, television being a medium where incredible storytelling could be found. And so if you don't evolve, you die. And so the television industry, I mean, has been for decades, every single time that there's been any sort of change in innovation or change in public interest, everybody always says, oh my gosh, well, you know, networks are going to die and TV's going to die. They're not going to die as long as they continue to evolve. And let's also remember that even though that the number is dwindling, there are certain areas of the country, and certainly, I mean, I can't speak for other countries, but in America, at least, there are certain areas that are still, you know, that don't have Wi-Fi. My parents only just recently were able to get a data package that allowed them to be able to stream anything. They were literally, I remember calling their company because my parents said, we can't watch anything on our laptop. And I was like, that's crazy. You just get an unlimited data package. And they said, well, we don't have that available. I said, that's not possible. I called and I spoke to their provider, and they said, where your parents live, the cables are not even run.
Right.
And so that's the thing, is that there are still rural areas that depend on, you know, turning on a television, and they just don't have the data packages available in those areas. So as technology improves, you know, and then also, let's face it, we now have adults who do not know a time period before they were able to watch things, you know, on their phone or their computer.
Right.
We have adults who have grown up never having to go, oh, it's time for CSI. Let's all sit down in front of the television. They just watch it whenever they want. As people who have depended on television and cable are no longer with us, as morbid as that sounds, you know, the generation of people who have grown up with the technology of being able to watch things streaming, that's going to evolve and it's going to take over.
You know, my parents, the Campea Ranch is in the same position. They had no internet service provider where they lived. So they literally had to get a company that provided satellite internet. And so they literally had to have a company come out and install this satellite dish on their thing, and they get fast enough internet that they can watch Netflix and the streaming and watch the John Campea Show. I'm sure my mom is doing that right now.
My mom probably is too. They finally got it. They finally got an unlimited stream. I remember I asked the person, I said, so how much of their data would be used if I wanted to watch like one episode of a 1 hour drama? And she said their entire month's data package would be used in one TV show.
We forget about how much data it actually does take up. So it is kind of huge. All right, let's keep going here. Next up, Dan Ketchum writes, Deadline is claiming that Henry Cavill is in talks to return as, drumroll, Superman, but not oddly in his own movie. Apparently, they are going to sprinkle him into other people's movies like Aquaman 2, which sounds vaguely like jobbing. No, see, here's the thing, though. Just showing up in another person's movie does not mean you are jobbing. For example, Falcon showed up in a Captain America movie. They never jobbed Falcon, even though, I mean, you could job him because it's Captain America, so that's not really jobbing, but they never jobbed him. Black Widow was in Captain America movies. They never jobbed her. You can have a character like a Superman, if you treat that character the right way, show up in another person's movie, and it could be there to elevate the movie and be perfectly great. The focus is still on Aquaman, or the focus is still on Shazam, or the focus is still on Black Adam, whichever they go. But then you bring in a supporting way, the Superman character to elevate certain things, and you treat them with respect. It can absolutely work. We've seen the MCU do it. The MCU has done that. And I think that shows you can do it. And I'm going to choose to believe, Dan, I am choosing to believe that's how they're going to do it. I am a little bit worried that they job him, but I'm going to choose to believe right now that they won't, and it can work out. It can work and work really, really well. And it'll give us Henry Cavill as Superman again. All right, Michael Schwenk writes, one of two. I finally got around to The Way Back, the Ben Affleck film, really, really good, and absolutely loved it. Going back to the trailer, though, the song used is Heavenly Father by Bon Iver, and just gives me such emotional, pulls you into it. Something about it just stayed with me. Is there a trailer like that for you, even if the movie wasn't memorable, but that trailer song worked so well you can't forget it? Another one that always comes to mind for me is Watchmen trailer, Smashing Pumpkins, the beginning is the end. It happens all the time. All the time. I can't think of any off the top of my head right now, but I know all the time we've had discussions. Oh, this trailer was so great and it had this song in it and it was so perfect and blah, blah, blah. It happens all the time. Like the choice of music, you know, a lot of people forget. I've got a documentary. What were you about to say? You just had like an epiphany or something.
No, keep going. I'll tell you afterwards.
Don't forget it.
I won't.
You know, I'm doing a documentary on trailers, and we actually went and spoke to the longest running most successful trailer company in Hollywood. And we went and sat down with them. And a lot of part of our discussion was, oh yeah, big part about trailers is the music you put in the trailers. That's absolutely part of it. And a lot of the times it's not music that's going to be in the movie, but they even have their own composers. Like these trailer companies have their own composers that will specifically compose music for it sometimes, but oftentimes it's the use of a really recognizable song or whatever. It's a majorly important part of trailers. And so you're absolutely not alone on that. What were you about to say? You
know, it's funny because I was like going through my head, like trying to think of a trailer with a song that I remember that really moved me. And this is such a random thing. There was, I believe it was a movie of the week, which is dating it, starring Anthony Michael Hall as Bill Gates, and I forget who was
Pirates of Silicon Valley. It was the guy from ER.
Noah Wiley?
Yes, Noah Wiley.
Okay, so he was playing Steve Jobs, and Anthony Michael Hall was playing Bill Gates, and you just saw them in these like slow zooming close-ups, and it was Tears for Fears. Everybody wants to rule. I can't sing, don't. But it was like everybody wants to rule the world, and it was almost like a heartbeat. You know, like you saw the intensity, and just in that trailer, you felt like you were watching two boxers about to go at it, about to really go at this, you know, fight to the death. And the idea, and just those words, everybody wants to rule the world, and knowing that Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, you know, with Microsoft and Apple, like it's still, I mean, like, I'm still excited about it.
And by the way, if you have not seen the Pirates of Silicon Valley, it's an older film now, yes, but It's really good.
I'm glad that you remember the name of it because I blanked on it. But yeah, it's so good.
Really, really good. All right, next up here, we got hashtag release the Doolittle cut. Right. Donald Glover is a genius. He can act, write, direct, sing, and rap. My question is, what do you all think he's best at? Acting, directing, music. In my opinion, he's best at music. I love Atlanta, but This Is America video is a work of art. Donald Glover is a multi-talented dude, and Anne has really got me into lately watching Community. I was never all that into Community, but Anne's got me watching it lately, and I really, really like it. Troy and Abbott in the morning. Anyway, I'm really getting into Community. I think he's great. I'm going to say something unpopular. My wife gets mad at me every time I say this. Anne gets mad at me every time because Anne's a big Donald Glover fan. As a matter of fact, when Anne and I went to the Black Panther premiere, I've told this story before, but we're in the theater and they put up on the big screen in the movie theater the red carpet going on outside, and Donald Glover is on the red carpet. She goes, "Oh my gosh." And then she looks over beside me and the seat beside me is empty. The two seats beside me is empty. She goes, "What if Donald Glover's sitting right beside us?" And then all of a sudden, walking down the aisle comes Donald Glover and sits right beside us, right? Anne's tweet that she had pinned at the top of her Twitter for over a year was, Donald Glover is sitting beside us at the Black Panther premiere. I consider this our unofficial first date. So that's, Anne loves Donald Glover. I don't think he can sing. I really don't. I think he's a great rapper. Like if I've got about 100 songs on my Google playlist, on my Google Music playlist, that I'm going to have to transfer over to YouTube because Google Music is shutting down. But and it's that I just listened to those like 100 songs. There are like 4 or 5 Gambino songs on there. There are 4 or 5 Gambino, but all of them are strictly his rap stuff because he's got a lot of songs where he tries to sing. And I'm like, oh, honey, he can't sing. He thinks he can sing. He can sing better than me, but I'm not the standard of excellence. But I think his best thing is rapping. His music is incredible. And I like him as an actor. I think he's good as an actor. I don't think he's a great actor, but I think he's good. Better than a lot of others. But I think his best thing is his music. His music is infectious, I think. Anyway, what do you think he's best at?
By far his music. The This Is America video and the song and the way he did it and the dancing and all this, the symbolism, everything about it just sent chills up my spine. And I'm not even the audience that it is targeted to. Like it was really powerful and incredible and moving. I can't think of what his voice sounds like right now, but at the
a lot of falsetto.
But also, I mean, okay, I love Janis Joplin. I love her. I read her biography when I was in 6th grade. That's how much I love her. I will sing Me and Bobby McGee anytime, anywhere, no alcohol needed. I love her. Janis Joplin does not have a good voice. She's not a good singer by traditional standards, but I feel like there is something really valuable about the passion behind an artist, and that comes through sometimes. Again, I cannot necessarily remember off the top, like I just can't think of how his voice sounds. But I will say, Tom recently got me into Community as well, just this past week. He had me watch the season 1 finale with the paintball fight, right, and then the season 2 finale. There is a moment that when in the season 2 finale, when Donald Glover's character pops out of a trash can, Troy, when he's introduced, and he makes this face, he goes, oh, and he like does this weird like lip pursing thing. Tom must have played it 30 times over and over and over and over again. And every time he would play it, I wouldn't just giggle, I would guffaw. Like I would laugh so hard. He just has such brilliant comedic timing. And if you guys have not seen these paintball season finales, like I've never even seen another episode of Community. I want to go back and watch more of it now. But just these paintball episodes. Who's the guy, the Rick and Morty guy? Dan Harmon. Right. Dan Harmon directed.
He's the showrunner of the show.
Right.
You know what's funny? I've been watching. So Anne got me binging.
Brilliant.
She got me binging all these Community things. And by the way, the chemistry of Troy and Abed I don't know why I never got. See, I watched a few episodes of Community years ago. I'm like, it's all right, and I never got into it. Anne got me into it again recently. And I'm watching. I'm like, this is freaking brilliant.
I agree. But
that dynamic is just amazing with those two. But I always heard that season 5, Dan Harmon was removed as the showrunner.
Removed, or did he leave to do his own?
I thought removed, but then later he came back. Back. And so I'm like, oh, well, everybody's probably just, they're over exaggerating the thing, right? So Anne and I got binging. And a few days ago, we got to the season 4 finale. It's the one where the main character graduates and everybody loves each other. And it's
Joel McHale.
Joel McHale graduates and they move on. Season 1, and then we watched episode 1 of season 5, and it sucked.
It's like a totally new show.
Oh my God, it was terrible. They totally undid everything they did. They totally changed the characters. Like everything they just did for the last 4 seasons didn't mean anything. Now he's a rotten son of a bitch again. They don't really mean anything to each other again. It's like, what the hell? Like every other thing was so great. I know I'm getting totally sidetracked by this. Every other season and episodes and all flow together. You felt this building relationship. And then all of a sudden season 5, episode 1 comes. It was like, what the F was that? It was terrible. And now it makes me want to go. I actually asked Anne last night, can we just skip the rest of the season and just go right to season 6, which is I think where Dan Harmon came back. I think. I don't know. I'm not an expert on Community, but anyway, sorry. We went on that for way too long.
Donald Glover's awesome. We love him and everything he does. Donald Glover is
great, though.
Childish Gambino, Donald Glover, whatever he wants to refer to himself as, we will take it. Just give us more of it.
He's great. And I liked him as Lando. Damn it. I thought he was a good Lando. Anyway, last question we'll do with Erin here. Then we got to let her go. But Jared's Reviews writes, Bradley Cooper or Olivia Wilde? Which second directorial feature are you looking forward to the most? Don't Worry, Darling by Olivia Wilde or Cooper's Leonard Bernstein movie? Their movies were in my top 10 for the years they came out and both showed talent behind the camera. And of course, for those of you who don't know, Bradley Cooper's was, of course, A Star is Born, which was fantastic. And Olivia Wilde's was Booksmart, which was so good and so fantastic. I'll tell you what, I'm looking forward to Olivia Wilde's a little bit more. This is going to sound sacrilegious. I'm not that interested in a Leonard Bernstein biopic. I'm generally not interested, which is funny.
You don't like biopics in general, though.
I don't like biopics about musicians.
Oh.
But here's the funny thing, though. Here's the funny thing. I'm never interested in a biopic about musician, right?
Right. Yeah.
But
you did say that.
Then I watch, what was the Queen biopic?
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Then I watched Bohemian Rhapsody, and I loved Bohemian Rhapsody.
What did you think about Rocket Man?
I liked Rocket Man. I didn't like it nearly as much as Bohemian, but I did like it. Straight Outta Compton. I love Straight Outta Compton. So it's really weird that I am never interested in biopics about musicians. But at least half the time I end up really liking the biopics about musicians.
That's how I am
really
about
weird.
Animated movies. I never, ever, ever have any desire to go see an animated film for whatever weird reason. Probably because
I had to talk you into coming to see Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse with me. I had to talk you into that.
Right. But see, that's the thing. Every time I go, there's always some fucked up thing that happens, like the old man's wife dies and then I'm hysterical, or there's a spider in Spider-Man and I'm hysterical. There's always something. So I need someone to watch it first and then go, okay, so there's going to be this thing and it's going to make you cry, or there's going to be this thing and it's going to make you scared, or Bambi's mom is going to die and you'll cry, but the movie overall is great. So there's always one thing about every animated film that I see that I'm like, when Bing Bong died, I was like,
Oh, Bing Bong.
Oh, Bing Bong, Bing Bong. So, but ultimately, I end up enjoying them. And I'm like, why don't I see more animated films? These are fucking great. These are amazing.
You just made me remember Inside Out. That ending of that movie, when they realized they had to I think the main character's name was Riley, when they had to let Riley feel sadness.
Oh, God.
Listen, I didn't cry. But I was a mess. You look at her like, she's feeling sadness. Like she's owning it now. And they're finally letting her feel her sadness, because the whole movie was about keep her happy. And then she had to deal with this. You're getting emotional thinking about it. It was so beautiful. It was so well done. I love that movie. Inside Out.
It's been a really hard week. I need a good cry. I think I might go home and watch Inside Out just to clean out all of this stuff that's going on.
It's just so I'm glad you brought up Bing Bong. I'm so glad you did.
Yeah,
hey, listen. In the meantime, we have taken you overtime. So
what a great opportunity for me to leave so I can go and put my hysterics in the car.
Watch Inside Out. But in the meantime, Aaron, thank you for being here. We'll see you again next week.
Yes.
Joey Bishop.
Yes.
Where and when can people follow you in your adventures online?
Oh, please come join me on my Instagram or my Twitter at Aaron L. Cummings. And I love hearing from you guys. I love answering your questions. And I promise if I haven't already, I will get to it very, very soon. And I love you guys and everybody out there. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other.
All right. Thanks for being here, Aaron. And we will talk to you a little bit later. Thanks again. All right, guys. We are going to keep rolling through the rest of your questions. So let's keep doing that here. That was Jared's reviews we just did. Let's move on to Superman Steve, who writes, if Henry Cavill is definitely back as Superman, I just hope he remains in the same suit as Justice League or else I will cry. Well, you never know. I mean, listen, Superman, I think it was said before when not Man of Steel, but Superman Returns came out, they pointed out, somebody asked the director, why did you change Superman's costume for the movie? To which the director brilliantly replied to the question, which costume? Superman has had 27 different iterations of his costume, even in the comic books. So when you ask me, he said, why did you change the costume? I ask you, change it from what? You can always change and improve the costume. I'm totally cool if they decide to change. I do love this Superman costume. This one that Henry Cavill wears in Man of Steel. I love that costume. I think that costume's great, but I'm open to them changing the costume. It's fine if they do, as long as they don't put the red underwear back over top of it and do something silly. I'm okay with them trying something. Listen, the costume won't make the movie any better or any worse, so I'm okay with it. But I'm not gonna lie, Superman, if it was up to me and they asked me my opinion, I'd say just keep the costume that works, man. It just works. All right. An anonymous viewer writes, at the 55th BAFTAs in 2002, Eddie Murphy was nominated for Best Supporting Actor for Shrek, the only time I know of a prestigious award body nominating a voice role for acting nomination. That's interesting. He lost to Jim Broadbent, who won for Moulin Rouge. Jim Broadbent and Moulin Rouge. First of all, Moulin Rouge is a top 20, it's not in my top 10, but it's in my top 20 all-time favorite movies. I love Moulin Rouge, and Jim Broadbent does not get enough credit for that movie. He's fabulous in it. I did not know that Eddie Murphy got a nomination for that. That's interesting. And I agree with you, anonymous viewer, that, yeah, that's the only time I've ever heard of that happening. That's really interesting. Now I'm going to be curious to know if any of you guys know of other instances where, like, at either the BAFTAs, the SAGs, the Oscars, Golden Globes, even if you want to slum it a bit, if you know of any other circumstances where somebody only doing a voice got a nomination, I'd be curious to hear that, because that's a good one. I didn't realize that one. Thank you for sending that in. All right. Wakanda Forever writes, it's not your fault. Yeah, I know that. Look at me, son. It's not your fault. I know. No, it's not your fault. Oh, this is from Good Will Hunting. No, you don't. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. I know, all right. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. That's Robin Williams. I believe that's Robin Williams and Matt Damon from one of the best scene, probably the best scene in Good Will Hunting, if that's the right movie that I'm thinking of. All right, good quote on that one. Luke writes, hey, John and crew, big fan of the show. Thank you so much, Luke. I'm a little underwhelmed with the launch of HBO Max due to a lot of missing titles that were advertised to be on there at launch, i.e. Ed and Eddie, and Johnny Bravo. Oh, I loved Johnny Bravo. And no 4K and HDR support anywhere. Thoughts? Yeah, again, it's the no 4K thing, to be honest, I don't care about. I don't care about 4K. I really don't. I mean, when I buy new TVs, I did buy my new TVs to make sure they were 4K capable for future proofing. But honestly, I don't care about 4K content, because you guys can go up and look up YouTube videos on this. The science of how it works. If you're sitting more than a certain distance away from your TV, your human eye can't perceive a distance between regular HD and 4K. HDR is a little bit different. High dynamic range is a little bit different, because now you're getting into color space. But honestly, 4K isn't that big of an issue to me. So I'm not worried about that. But it's all these other things, Luke, that you mentioned and that others have written in and mentioned that I do find a bit concerning. And I think are things that need to be addressed and fixed. And it does leave me a little bit of a head scratch. It's like, you're a major company like Warner Media, you're HBO. How do you drop the ball like this when you've had years to plan your launch? How can you drop the ball like this? And if you if you're going to launch in a certain state, why don't you clearly communicate to your customers that this is how we're going to launch? We're going to launch with this, and then it's going to be an exciting next 6 months because we're going to be rolling out new things. Like, you should have advertised it that way, and they never did get around. And you have to forgive me, guys. I need to turn on the air conditioner here because it's getting hot in the studio. Anyway, yeah, it's a little bit befuddling to me. But again, I'm saying that just based on the things I've heard, because I myself have not tried out HBO Max yet. So I've got to get a chance to do that once they let. And how do you launch not on Roku? I don't get how they are so unprepared. I just don't get that. How are you so unprepared? Anyway, it's a little bit befuddling, man. All right, Mandalorian of Gondor writes, "Hey, John, is there a difference between when a movie says based on a true story events and when a movie is inspired by true events? Also, I'd love if Cavill came back, and my money is on Shazam 2. Thanks, and may what you do in life echo throughout eternity." Is a good Gladiator quote right there. I don't know. I think when they say inspired by true events, I think that's kind of their... Look, when you say based on true events, you can't expect them to be 100% accurate, because this isn't a documentary. It's a fictional, it's a movie. So they're going to take liberties. I feel like when they say, and there's no rule for this, I just feel like when they say inspired by true events, I got a feeling that's them, kind of their way of saying, okay, we're taking a lot of liberties with this. You know what I mean? Like, I always expect a movie based on true events to take liberties. Because it's a movie. It's not a history lesson. It's not a college course. It's not a documentary. I expect them to take some liberties. That's fine. I just kind of, whenever I see the phrasing inspired by true events, to me, that's kind of their way of saying, hey, we're actually taking a lot of creative liberties here. I'm not saying that's a fact. I'm just saying that's kind of been my interpretation of it. But believe me, Mandalorian, you're not the first one to ask that question. Believe me, I don't know that there's a rule. I think a studio can just say it whatever way they want. They can say it's based on true events or inspired by, they can do either. But again, my personal interpretation, which may be off, is when you say based on, yeah, you'll probably take some liberties. Inspired by, that's you kind of tell me you're going to take lots of liberties. And whatever, I don't care as long as you make a good movie. But that's my interpretation of it. But I don't think there's any rule. I don't think there's a rule to that. But who knows? Good question, man. All right, Darth Wayne writes, is this a strategic plan by Warner Brothers, sprinkling Cavill's Superman into different movies to take a look at how the audience reacts to this character now in this reinvented DCEU? So before taking the decision of making a movie, they see if the desire is there. That is possible. Because like I said, I feel from what I've been told is there's an idea to have Superman in things now, which they did not have that before, but now they want to do it. And if what I'm told is if Cavill doesn't come back to do this, it's going to be somebody else. They are going to use Superman again in one of these upcoming films. I think they want it to be Cavill. I think it will be Cavill. But if for whatever reason it's not Cavill, it's still going to be somebody. I don't know. I haven't heard that the reason they're doing this is to kind of see how do people feel about this Superman now? I don't know, but it's not a bad theory. It's not a bad theory. But then again, I don't think you use your feature films as an experiment, right? You don't risk, let's say they want to use Superman and Aquaman 2. You don't go to James Wan and say, hey, I know you're making your Aquaman 2, but us at the studio, we want to see how people react to Superman today. So can you change your movie up and put in Superman? To which James Wan would go, what the F are you smoking? You're asking me to change my movie to slide in a new character just so you can see how the audience would react to it? Yeah, James, would you mind doing that? I mean, so again, I don't know. Theoretically, it doesn't sound all that bad. It's like, hey, let's see how people feel about Superman now because they didn't respond to him well for whatever reason before. Let's see how they respond to him now. But again, I just don't see them going to like Dwayne Johnson and saying, hey, Dwayne Johnson, I know you've been really passionate about this Black Adam movie. Can you change your movie around now so we can put in Superman? Dwayne The Rock Johnson and Henry Cavill are friends and they have the same representation, so I'm sure that wouldn't be a problem. But I don't see them using their movies I don't see them making sacrifices to their movies just so they can use it as a science experiment. But at the same time, all other things being equal, it's also not a bad thing to try. So I don't know. It's an interesting thought, Darth. It's an interesting thought. Maybe that is part of it. But they just have to be, I don't know, maybe the filmmakers wanted to put Superman in their movie, and then the studio went, you know what? Okay, you go ahead and put Superman in that movie because it wouldn't be bad for us to see how the audience responds from now. If it went that way, like if it starts with the filmmakers and not with the studio, then maybe I could see that working. Like if James Wan said, hey, Warner Brothers, listen, I got my idea for Aquaman 2, but it includes me using Superman. Are you cool with that? And then Warner Brothers goes, you know what? This would give us an opportunity to see how the audience will respond to Superman these days. Let's see if we can get Henry back to actually play the role. That I can see working. But if it's the other way around and it starts with the studio, I don't see the studio going to James Wan and say, James, I know you got your movie. Can you change it? Because we want to slide in Superman. Why? No reason. We just want to see how the audience responds to him. That I don't think works. But if it starts with the filmmakers and then the studio signs off on it, I'm making up a lot of hypothetical situations here, but bottom line here, Darth, it's an interesting theory. All right, John Argo Rodriguez writes, I finally got HBO Max, and now that it's launched, when is that HBO thumb up my ass you mentioned a couple of weeks ago? Yeah, what was that? What were we talking about? Was that HBO Go, HBO Now, HBO thumb up my ass? I can't remember what specifically we were talking about that. And hey, man, I wanted to try HBO Max, but I can't because my house is a Roku household. And the one backup streaming device I have is an Amazon Fire back. So guess what? It's not on there either. So I haven't had the opportunity to test it out yet, but hopefully I will. All right, Damo Davies writes, I feel like Christmas has come early. Cineworld Cinemas is looking to open all UK branches by July. They're also going to be doing that worldwide for their theaters, which includes Regal Cinemas in the United States. Different lockdown restrictions are in place in England, Wales, Northern Ireland, and Scotland, but they are committed to opening all in Britain by July. That's what they're saying as well for their worldwide stuff. Now, they are going to be very tightly in communication with government to make sure that they feel like, yep, they're on that path, that they're going to be able to open their theaters in July and be ready for when Tenet and Mulan come out. And that's the hope, man. Anything can change. And let's hope it doesn't. But that is the hope. And it is, Damo, as an avid moviegoer, and as many of you guys are too, man, that's the best news I've heard in a while. That's the best news. Let's see if they're actually, I expect to hear an announcement from AMC in the next couple of days. And once that does, then the wheels are in motion. So let's see what happens. All right. Thanks for bringing that up, Damo. Initial D's writes, hey, John, I was just wondering if you're losing a lot of revenue with super chats being broken. I know people were saying they couldn't tip and had to use them when you turned them off that one time. I also know YouTube keeps 1/3, but still has to be affecting. It is affecting a little bit. So for those of you who don't know what Initial is talking about, there have traditionally been two ways to send in a tip of some sort or a live question super chat, right? There's two different ways to do it. One, normally, has been using the YouTube super chat feature. It's easy, it's quick, it's convenient, it's great. The drawback, of course, for me, is that YouTube keeps 1/3 of it. So, when you send in a, say, $10 super chat, I actually get like $6.75 or something like that of it. And then YouTube keeps the rest. But still, it's fine because it's quick, it's easy, it's convenient. People use it a lot. And it's been a great source of revenue and support for the channel. Unfortunately, my viewers are more important to me than those extra shekels that we get from super chats. And what started happening was YouTube has been having issues lately, like from taking 8 hours sometimes to process the finished videos. And then all of a sudden last week, what happened was I saw people were sending in super chats, but they were disappearing immediately from the YouTube logs. And so I had no record of the questions being sent in. So I had people supporting the show actually financially contributing and supporting the show by sending in a question using super chat and all that kind of stuff. And I couldn't answer their damn questions because they were disappearing out of the YouTube logs. And that's unacceptable. That's just simply unacceptable. I can't have that. I can't have somebody trying to support the channel and expecting to get expecting to hear their questions getting answered. And then I can't answer it because YouTube makes it disappear immediately. Unacceptable. So yeah, it does pinch me a little bit that the super chats aren't available. I had to turn it off because even though I'm losing out on a little bit of money, I cannot have a situation where people are trying to send in questions and their questions don't get answered. I can't have that. So now, a lot of people who have used super chat have then started using what has always been the better way, granted, which is using the tip link, because that works better, not to mention the fact that, they never lose their logs. On top of that, they don't keep 30% like Super Chat does and all that kind of stuff. But not everybody can use this. This isn't not everybody everywhere can use this. And I think the Super Chat is available in a few more areas that this isn't. So yes, it has hurt a little bit. It's been made up for by some people coming over and using the tip link. So it has hurt a little bit, but it's just until I see that they have rock solidly fixed that problem, I can't risk people sending in money and not getting their questions answered. I can't risk that. That's just unacceptable. So, it is just the way it's got to be for now. So it sucks, but listen, that is part of the trials of relying on a third-party service like YouTube, right? Like every YouTuber is at the mercy of YouTube. YouTube is a free service. We don't pay to use the service. YouTube doesn't owe me anything. YouTube doesn't owe any YouTuber anything. They provide a free service. Yeah, they keep cuts of super chats, but they facilitate super chats, right? So I get that. They keep a cut of the ad revenue, but they're the ones who line up their ad revenue. So I get all that. But that is part of one of the downsides of using free services, is that you're kind of at their mercy a little bit. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to make it sound like I'm bitching and complaining about YouTube. YouTube offers a great free service. Hell, I got my channel because of YouTube. But there are drawbacks when you're at the mercy of a third-party free service. And it is. But once I see that they've got that all fixed and rock solid again, we'll probably open up super chats again. But until then, I got to make sure I protect my viewers. So there's that. Thank you for the question, Ishaliz. I appreciate it. All right. Next up, Roger Lee writes, this whole situation with Jimmy Fallon having to apologize for doing a comedy sketch is ridiculous. Well, while we're at it, I hope Eddie Murphy and the Wayans apologize for all the times they wore whiteface. SJWs of the world unite. Yeah, well, look, listen, I never want to be in the position, although I myself have done this. So I don't want to be pot calling the kettle black here, because I myself have done this, but still I want to be careful of it, especially because it's something I've fallen into. I never want to be in a position where I'm telling other people what they should and should not be affected by, right? I think it's kind of the height of arrogance, and I've been guilty of it myself. This is why I'm really sensitive, because I've been guilty of it myself. I don't want to be in the position, like I have before, where I'm telling other people what should affect them and what shouldn't affect them. That's the height of arrogance. That's the height of arrogance, and saying, world, me. World revolves around me. That's a world revolves around me kind of attitude. And I've done it. I've been guilty of it. That's why I'm really sensitive about it. So I never want to be in a position where I'm telling people what they should and how something should or should not affect them. And, I've just got to believe that, I think when things happened 10 or 15 years ago, like in the Kevin Hart situation, I thought, okay, that was 10 years ago. And certainly we learn and we evolve and attitudes change, and we got to recognize that. Yeah, but I don't know. It's a deep and complex issue. But I'll just tell you this. I want to be careful how I say this. I don't know the right way to say what I'm trying to say is other than this. I think it's the height of arrogance to tell other people how something should affect them when we don't walk in their shoes, right? That's not to say everything is free game, not at all. I just think it's the height of arrogance, self-centeredness, and myopic thinking to say how other people should or should not be affected by certain things when we have completely different life experiences. And I've done it. So I want to be careful of that. Again, I'm not saying that that should open up a free-for-all and that means there's no exceptions. I'm not trying to say that at all. I'm just saying we should be very, very careful, especially me. I should be very, very careful about telling other people how they should feel. That's dangerous ground. It's very myopic thinking. It's very, I'm the center of the universe. It doesn't affect me that way, so it shouldn't affect anybody else that way. I just think we should be really, really careful about that. That's all I'm saying on that matter. So it is what it is. All right. Initial D's writes, I couldn't believe what you said at the end of the show yesterday. There's a 20% chance the Netflix Marvel shows could end up on Disney Plus. I know there's about a 1% chance of that happening because of you. Those are way too mature for Plus. Maybe Hulu. That's actually, you know what? That is a much better way of saying it. Yeah. Not Disney Plus. You're right. I think the way my mind was thinking about on Disney, and of course Hulu is one of Disney's arms. I think you're 100% about that. I think you're 100% right about that. And I think it's a big if the Netflix Marvel shows, the Daredevils, the Punishers, if those ever pardon me, I got the hiccups now. If those ever leave Netflix and Disney's able to get their hands on them, which I don't think is likely, but could. That's why I was saying 20% chance. That could happen. I don't think likely, but could. I think you are 1,000% correct. They definitely do not go on Disney Plus. They will go on Hulu if it ever happens, which I'm not sure it will. But yeah, good catch on that initial D's, and you're 1,000% right about that. Absolutely. I should have phrased that properly. I was just thinking Disney, so I said Disney Plus, and you're right. If it comes over at all, which I doubt it will, it'll be on Hulu, not Disney Plus. 1,000% correct about that. All right, Ethan Holgate writes, Hey, John, I really love to lead a Battle Angel, and I badly want a sequel, but I just wondered, do you think Disney might allow Jim with more freedom with his projects if Avatar 2 makes them a lot more money? Do you think they will greenlight an Alita 2 if that happens? What Jim does with... first of all, Jim didn't direct Alita Battle Angel, so let's be very clear about that. What Jim does with Avatar, Disney will draw no connective lines saying, oh, if it worked for Avatar, because they did, right? How much did, at the end of the day, hold on a second, Alita, let me just get a grip on this. Alita Battle Angel, I don't even know if it broke even. I don't think it broke even. No, it didn't break even. It lost money. I like Alita Battle Angel. I didn't love it, but I liked Alita Battle Angel. I thought it was better than some people gave it credit for. I thought it was pretty good. It had some weaknesses, whatever, but it lost money. It made $404 million at the box office, probably needed in the neighborhood, because it had a $170 million budget, probably needed in the neighborhood of $525 around there to break even. So it probably lost them $100 million or more. That's all that matters to Disney. Is they're not just going to go, oh, hey, James Cameron. Well, James Cameron was producer of the first one and it lost money. So I don't think anything that happens with that. Now, listen, that's not to say that an Alita Battle Angel sequel is impossible. It's not impossible. I would personally be down to see an Alita sequel. I think they need to correct and improve a few things off the first film, but I would be down to seeing a second one because I like the first one. But I really don't think that, let's put it this way. If Avatar 2 bombs, I don't think it hurts an Alita 2 chances. If Avatar 2 is a $2 billion film, I don't think that helps Alita's chances at all. I think Alita is going to get a sequel or it won't based on its own merits and their own analysis of that property. That could change if James Cameron says, I'll direct Alita 2. But the thing is, James Cameron's got Avatar 2, 3, 4, and 5 that he's already committed to, which means we wouldn't get, if James Cameron said to Disney, I tell you what, if I direct it, will you let us do an Alita 2? To which Disney will probably go, sure. But the thing is, then we wouldn't be getting an Alita 2 till 2031 or something like that. So I don't think the fate of Alita is in any way at all, negatively or positively. I don't think it's in any way, shape, or form attached to Avatar. I don't think it's attached to that at all. But hey, it's not impossible, though. It could happen. I just don't think it'll have anything to do with Avatar's success or failure. All right, David Crabtree writes, by the way, guys, I know we've gone over time. You know what? I'm going to get through all the questions today. Doesn't matter how long we got to go today. I'm going to get through all the questions today because it's Thursday. I don't know what that means, but we're going to get through all the questions. All right. David Crabtree writes, I might be in the minority here, but I got to admit, I'm not a big fan of the Donner cut of Superman 2. I strongly prefer the theatrical version. I also prefer the theatrical version. I don't dislike the Donner cut, but I prefer the theatrical version, which I grew up loving as a kid and still love to this day. I've seen the Donner cut a couple of times. Yeah, that Superman 2 movie, you know, it's funny because I actually think Superman 2 holds up better than Superman 1 does. I don't know. There's a quality about Superman 2. Of course, a lot of that has to do with Zod. Kneel before Zod. Oh my God, Zod. I mean, it's great. I love Superman 2. It's a lot of fun. But I agree with you. That is one of the early. You know what? That might actually be the thing that kind of set the template for me as a film fan. That I personally kind of prefer. Normally, not every time, but I kind of prefer theatrical cuts normally to director cuts because, there's a reason why they put this cut in theater and not the other one. There are exceptions. Certainly there are exceptions, but generally there's that. And that might be one of the earliest examples for me personally. Anyway, thanks for that, David. All right, David also writes 2 of 2. And while it was a fun novelty to watch the first time, I just prefer the creative choices made in the Lester film as a whole. And come on, General, care to step outside is one of the great moments in a superhero film. That's a great line. That's a great, because not only is it a great iconic line in and of itself, it's a great callback to something that happens earlier in Superman as well. It's a wonderful thing. I love the original cut. I just do. I just love that original cut, David. So I'm with you on that. Not that I think the Donner cut is bad. Not at all. I just prefer the theatrical cut. All right, Wakandan Forever writes, I'm more than a bird. I'm more than a plane. I just wish that I could cry, fall upon my knees, find a way to lie about a home I'll never see. Even heroes have the right to bleed. Even heroes have the right to dream. You sleep sound tonight. It's not easy to be. No idea what that's from. I can't comment on it. Sounds nice. I'm guessing it's some kind of song lyric, but I don't recognize it at all. David Crabtree writes, favorite comedies, this was hard. Number 15, Spaceballs. Ooh, a top 15. Number 14, Tommy Boy. Number 13, Ghostbusters. Number 12, Dodgeball. I love seeing Dodgeball getting love. I love that movie. Number 8, The Burbs. I actually don't like The Burbs that much. And just watched it for the first time because she's a Tom Hanks fanatic and she's never watched The Burbs. She wasn't a big fan of The Burbs, though. Number 10, Anchorman. Number 9, Step Brothers. Number 8, Naked Gun. Number 7, Galaxy Quest. Number 6, Coming to America. Number 5, Clue. Number 4, Christmas Vacation. Number 3, 40-Year-Old Virgin, which is my number 1. Number 2, My Cousin Vinny, which is great. And number 1, Airplane. Still the greatest spoof comedy of all time. Depending on how you define Spaceballs, some people consider Spaceballs a spoof. Some people just call it a satire. But whatever it is. But 40-Year-Old Virgin is still my number 1 favorite comedy of all time. The 40-Year-Old Virgin to me is just that incredible mix of raunchy comedy, but also really heartfelt and addresses some real stuff in it while, talking about the stuff that they talk about in 40-Year-Old Virgin. I jacked it in here twice since I got here. I mean, like it blends the ridiculous raunch comedy with real deep emotional stuff at the same time. It's my favorite comedy of all time to this day. That's a good list, David. Thanks for bringing that one up. All right, Diamond Dogs Puppy writes, hey everyone, today's underappreciated film is 1997's 187 starring Samuel L. Jackson and your guy John Clifton Collins. It's a tale about a teacher dealing with violent youths in 1990s LA. The ending is especially memorable. Diamond Dog over and out. I'm not familiar with that one. Hold a second. 187 IMDb. I'm not familiar with that one. 1997 film. I don't even recognize the poster. I don't even recognize. Listen, by the way, Clifton Collins Jr. Okay, I don't know if I've told this story before. Clifton Collins Jr. is just one of these actors who just pops up in everything, whether it's a Westworld or whether it's Ballers or whether it's whatever. He just pops up all over the place, and a lot of people don't know his name, and he always is solid. And there was this one year at Comic-Con where a buddy of mine, Mark Neveldine, who is one of the writers and directors of the Crank films and several other movies as well. And he's one of the reasons I met my wife, Ann, is Mark. So Mark Neveldine and I, we were both at Comic-Con one year, and he invited me to come have breakfast. So I go and have breakfast with Mark. And he goes, I got a friend of mine coming. Cliff is coming. My buddy Cliff is coming. I'm like, all right, great, whatever. And I'm sitting there talking with Mark for about 5 minutes. And then Clifton Collins Jr. walks in because they had done a movie together. Clifton Collins Jr. writes in. And so I got to sit down and have breakfast. That's right, because Clifton was in Crank 2. I believe it was Crank 2 that was in. Anyway, so I got to sit down and have breakfast with him. That dude is hilarious. Like, I had never met him before, but just him talking for like that hour at breakfast was crazy. Like, he was seriously just naturally funny. So if you need to have more of an appreciation for Clifton Collins Jr., because that dude is great. Always delivers in the roles he's in. Just a really funny dude. Anyway. All right. The Wakanda Forever writes, I love DC and Marvel, but sometimes you want to change from the capes and cowls. That's true. Do you have a favorite non-traditional superhero film? Mine are Unbreakable and Chronicle. P.S. I like the Case for Man of Steel video. Thank you so much for that. He did what he could. People. Jeez. Yeah, no, I go into the whole thing on that in my video. So thank you for that. The first thing that came to my mind, Wakanda, when I was reading what you wrote, saying, do you have one that is the first thing that came to my mind is Chronicle. I love that movie. And it's really funny because I begrudgingly went to go see Chronicle initially because I was kind of over the whole found footage thing that everybody was doing around the time. And I was kind of over the whole thing. And, oh, look, kids find out they have superpowers. That movie resonates way more than I ever thought it would. And I remember walking out, and I saw it with my brother-in-law, Ray, and walking out going, I am shocked how much I like that movie. And it's always been a big source of sadness for me that they didn't do a sequel. I always thought they should have done a sequel. All right, Diamond Dog's Puppy writes, hello, John. I have HBO Max, but have not actually watched anything yet. Browse through to see the various shows and movies. Doom Patrol is #1 on my HBO Max list. Pretty excited for it. Hope it is as original and involving as The Boys. Well, if you saw Doom Patrol Season 1, you'll know it is very original. It's very, very original. It's a very different kind of show than The Boys, but similar in their approach to the traditional material of like superhero fare. Doom Patrol is amazing. And I was not going to watch that show. I thought it looked ridiculous. A bunch of you guys said, John, you got to watch this. You are going to love it. And I'm like, fine, I'll try it, but it looks stupid. It looks dumb. And now I love it. I love that show so much, and that is probably the biggest thing I'm really excited about watching again, Diamond Dog. All right, Simon sends in a $50 tip. Thank you so much for that, Simon. If there is a question in this, we will address it in its own standalone video in a few weeks, so keep your eyes open for that. So thank you for supporting us on that level, dude. All right. Because of my super ability, you are now able to enjoy seeing Henry Cavill as Superman in years to come. Now, John and Rob, who's not here, would you please see Justice League Dark Apocalypse War? Also, Flashpoint is Elseworld, but when Barry lets Mother die is reality. Oh, I know that. Yeah, I know that from what I saw Flashpoint. I don't mind Flashpoint. I thought Flashpoint was okay. I don't know. There's just so much stuff I need to watch and get caught up on that I've had a number of people, unlike Doom Patrol, where I've had a lot of people watch and say, John, you are going to really like this. I've had a number of people who I know say, yeah, John, you're not going to like this. So I don't know. I've been trying to talk myself into watching this because I think most Marvel and DC straight-to-home video animation is shit. I'll just be honest with you. I think most of it is shit. Both Marvel and DC's animated stuff that goes straight to home video. But as I've talked about before, there are exceptions to that. There are a couple I actually do quite enjoy. So I've been trying to talk myself into watching it. So I don't know. I also just can't see myself spending $20 to watch it. So I don't know. I will try, Simon. I'll tell you, I will try. I will try to get myself to watch this animated movie. This animated straight to home video movie. I will try to get myself to sit down and watch it. I'll give it a shot. All right. Anyway, next up, Wakanda Forever writes, I've always loved superheroes more than fantastical powers or cool costumes. They serve as a kind of North Star for me. They overcome great tragedy and use their abilities for good. And that always stuck with me. What is it about superheroes that you love? Well, I mean, that goes back to like the original. Listen, when you go back to the origins of comic books, and Stan Lee, I almost said Jim Lee. Stan Lee would articulate this beautifully way better than I can. But the basics of comic books are really iconic. What's the best word for it? They're iconic representations of moral conflict that are resonant throughout the history of our species' storytelling, right? They are avatars, if you will, for classic tales of good and evil, right and wrong, and things like that. And in their best form, and again, Stan Lee used to describe this way better than I am right now, but to paraphrase him, the comic book characters become manifestations and representations of bigger ideologies, mythologies, morality, struggles, fears, whatever. They become manifestations of those, and they really are just reflective of those iconography, I guess you could call it, that we as a species have always had. And that was comic books at their best. And comic books at their best today is when they are those representations of those things. And I think that's part of the things I've always appreciated about them. They are far deeper than a lot of people give them credit for. So that's what it is to me at any rate, Wakandan. That's what it is to me. All right, Honest Asian Guy writes, "Hey, John, today's recommendation is the 1999 Iranian film, The Color of Paradise, which I saw, oddly enough. Many films have moved me to tears, but this one also made me want to be a better person. Thanks for doing what you do, sir, and enjoy the rest of your day." Yeah, normally when it comes to a lot of the foreign films, I go, I've never heard of that one. This one I actually saw. And listen, it's got that quality that's kind of like that Mr. Rogers documentary, Won't You Be My Neighbor? Where, really good movies change the way you see the world. Great movies change you, right? They make you become reflective, and they make you want to reevaluate who you are, and they inspire you to want to be a better person. Really good movies change the way you see the world. Great movies change you. And that's the kind of a slogan I've kind of gone by ever seeing that's Mr. Rogers. But that is one of those movies that really makes you and inspires you to make you want to do a lot of self-reflection. And I agree. All right, next up, Simon writes, $50 question. Please explain why it seems that Justice League Dark Apocalypse War seems like a dream Elseworld story when we know that it is the end result of Barry Allen correcting the timeline from Flashpoint. He allows Mom to die, but the timeline can never be the same. Again, I cannot guarantee I'm going to watch it. So I don't know that I can answer that question. The $50 questions are to get me to answer a question. They're not to get me to go out and do something. I'm not Postmates. So I'll tell you what, though. If I do watch Justice League Apocalypse War, if I do watch it, I will try to, again, I can't address it right now because I haven't seen the thing and I don't know that I will. And honestly, the way you're describing it really turns me off. Because, to me, alternate timelines and all this kind of stuff, to me, I find that to be very weak, poor man's storytelling devices. So hearing you describe it like that kind of turns me off a little bit more. But if I do watch it, and I'm still in the process of trying to talk myself into watching it, if I do watch it, I will address that. All right, next up, 50 Shades of Gandalf the Grey writes, "A lot of recent series feel like long movies with extra unnecessary fluff. Do you think any could be re-edited into a 2 to 3 hour movie? I'll be curious to see each season of Stranger Things recut into a feature. Think any other shows would benefit from this?" I don't know if there's a benefit to doing that. I mean, one show that easily could do that is Mandalorian, right? Because Mandalorian was like under 30 minutes episodes, as it were. So even uncut, you're talking about a roughly 4 to 4.5 hour viewing session if you're going to sit down and watch all of The Mandalorian. Say roughly 4.5 hours. I'm just taking a guess. So that would clearly be easier to cut down if you needed to. You could cut that down into a standalone movie. Others, I don't know, like Stranger Things. I don't know that there was a lot of fluff in Stranger Things. And again, those are hour-long episodes or close to hour-long episodes. So you're talking about 7, 8, 9, 10 hour things you're trying to cut down to a movie. So I don't know if that would work that way. It's easier to take a concept and expand it out into multiple episodes than it is to take something like 10 hours of content and whittle it down into something that's coherent and flows properly in just a 2.5 hour experience. So I don't know, but Mandalorian could be one of those because it's so short to start off with. Interesting idea though. James Bonner writes, Good morning, John. I saw your Man of Steel video last night. Thank you so much for checking that out. Great job. Agree 100% regarding Zod being deeper and more complex character. Michael Shannon's performance is one of the reasons I'm a big fan of him as an actor. Michael Shannon, who I really first noticed in Boardwalk Empire. He was so good in Boardwalk Empire. But Michael Shannon as Zod is one of the most truly underrated villains in comic books, in comic book movies, I should say. Michael Shannon's Zod is brilliant. Everything, just the way he carries himself, there's a menace to him, but also multiple layers and dimensions, and a lot of that is because of his performance. So he doesn't get the credit he deserves for that, in the least. In the least, he doesn't get the credit he deserves. All right, Tristan Riera writes, hey, John. So a few days ago, we heard the Snyder Cut will be released. Best news I've heard since 2017. Today, you're telling us Henry Cavill may play Superman again. So by next week, I expect Warner Brothers to greenlight Ben Affleck's Batman with complete freedom. Yeah, don't hold your breath, but oh my God, how good would that be? Now listen, I always want to be very careful. It is in no way, shape, or form any disrespect to Matt Reeves and what he's doing with Batman. I am very looking forward to seeing what Matt Reeves does with Batman. I'm excited about that movie. I am. But if I had the Infinity Gauntlet, I could warp reality right now, we would be getting a Ben Affleck Batman movie. That is in no way a negative reflection on Matt Reeves. A lot of people, whenever they hear me say that what I really wanted was Ben Affleck's Batman movie, I wanted the movie he was writing and directing, I wanted the movie he was going to star in, that's what I wanted. Over the last couple of years, people have taken that as to me saying, like, I don't want what Matt Reeves is doing. And that's not true at all. I think if it can't be Ben Affleck, Matt Reeves is as good a choice as any, and he's a great director, and I'm really looking forward to what he does. But yeah, that doesn't change the fact that Ben Affleck is my favorite iteration of Batman of all time. More his Batman versus Superman iteration than his Justice League iteration, but still, he's my favorite iteration. Not that Batman versus Superman is better than The Dark Knight, obviously not, but this iteration of the character I've loved. But that in no way, shape, or form is meant as any sort of negative thing on the Matt Reeves Batman, which I am also very much looking forward to. All right, James Bonner writes, okay, this one's for you, Aaron, who you just missed, unfortunately. Finally got a finally, although it's been a little while ago at this point, got to see Bitch Slap and wanted to say that I loved it. Having Xena and Gabrielle cameo as nuns, bonus. Here's to new and exciting roles coming your way. So yeah, of course, the movie that Aaron did that led to me meeting her was her movie Bitch Slap. And in that movie also was Hercules, Kevin Sorbo, and Xena, Warrior Princess. Why am I freezing on the actress' name? I love her. She's in Parks and Rec too. And I'm freezing on Xena, Warrior Princesses. Anyway, so she's also not as Xena, but she's in Bitch Slap also. So they got to work with those people, which is really great. If you haven't had a chance to see Bitch Slap, it's just a ridiculous, bonkers, fun film. I really got a kick out of it. So, and it's the movie that led me to meeting Aaron. So I'm glad you had a chance to watch. She would have been tickled. If she was still here, she would have loved hearing that you watched it, man. So thanks for sending that in. Gabe writes, I don't understand why it's being reported that Zack's cut doesn't have visual effects. The first Justice League teaser that came out in 2016 had VFX, and that came out while Zack was still on the movie. So am I missing something? I don't know if their thing is that all the stuff that would comprise of the unique things, because remember, the Snyder Cut is going to have things in it that are in the existing Justice League movie. It's not a totally from scratch brand new movie. It's a very different thing, but it's not a from scratch brand new movie. So how much of that was like previs? How much of that stuff was done for the trailers at the time? How much of that stuff is reused footage? All that kind of stuff. I don't know. All I know is that in talking, and maybe it's just hyperbole, which is possible. It's possible it could just be hyperbole. But when the Hollywood Reporter interviewed Zack and Deborah Snyder, their report said that none of the post-production was done on the stuff that would comprise of the unique things of Snyder Cut. When the HBO Max head guy, Greenblatt, came out the other day and said, yeah, that movie doesn't exist right now. I mean, there's so much work that needs to be done on it. It's crazy. Does that mean none was ever done? I mean, I don't know. Obviously, the stuff that got into the theatrical cut got done, and there's going to be some of that in the Snyder Cut. but where that line is drawn and what's it specific, because we know there are trailers that have done visual effects specifically for the trailers that then had to be redone or were done a different way in the actual movie. So are they talking about that? Are they just using hyperbole when they say none of the visual effects and none of the post-production has been done? I don't know. Well, so it could be any of those options. It could be any of those things. It's hyperbole. It was stuff that was in the original theatrical cut. A lot of different options there. A lot of different options. All right. So, but it's a reasonable question to ask, Gabe, for sure. All right. Checkmate 9 Moves writes, should there be a Superman segment in Batman versus Superman was powerful. It was really, really good. The voiceovers of people shunning his actions, cut with him selflessly saving people, ended by Neil Tyson finishing the lines while the woman on the roof reaches out towards a hovering savior chills. It's beautiful. It's the continuation of, for those of you who watched the Case for Man of Steel video, we talk about the messianic figurism with Superman in it, right? That continues over, but it's also a continuation of what Jonathan Kent says to Clark in Man of Steel. When people find out what you can do, it's going to change everything. Our beliefs, our understanding of what it means to be human, everything. And what we saw in Batman versus Superman with all the people in the world discussing and debating about the role of the Superman is a total justification and of what Jonathan Kent and a validation of what Jonathan Kent told Clark in Man of Steel. It's going to change everything. It's going to make us question everything. And then we get into Batman versus Superman. Now that the world knows that the Superman is there, the questions start to arise, right? And I thought that was a beautiful extension of it. I really did. All right. Robert Beveridge writes, where do we go? There he is. Regarding yesterday, Joss Whedon cut his film in a cave with a box of scraps. A little bit of a reference to Iron Man. Yeah. So we've been talking about, I think, one of the dumbest things in film fandom today is the treatment that Joss Whedon gets, particularly from supporters, not all of them, maybe only even a fragment of them, but from a certain fragment of the Snyder Cut fandom people. I think it's a tremendous travesty and ignorance that of the treatment that Joss Whedon gets when Joss Whedon saved that movie. Even if you hated the Justice League movie that was in theaters, nobody could have done as good of a job as Joss Whedon did in that circumstance. And you got to understand the circumstances. People treat Joss Whedon as if Joss Whedon came to Warner Brothers and said, Warner Brothers, you got to throw out what Zack Snyder's doing. I got a much better idea. Let me do it, and I can do it all in 3 months. And that Joss Whedon convinced Warner Brothers to do it. That's not what happened. What happens is Warner Brothers did not like the movie, whether they were right or wrong. At the time, under Kevin Tsujihara, who is no longer there, Warner Brothers did not like the movie that was being made. And they decided they wanted a different movie. And so they get Joss Whedon and say, we need this movie to be totally different, and we're not giving you any extra time to finish it. Because Kevin Tsujihara wanted his 2017 bonus check. Thank you very much. And if the movie opened later, he wouldn't get his bonus. So no extra time. So Whedon, we want this movie changed, and we're giving you no extra time to do it. Go. You think anybody else could have done as good? Joss Whedon saved the movie. It may not have turned out the way you wanted it. It may not have turned out as good as it could have under different circumstances. You may have hated the movie, and that's all fair. What isn't fair is the villainizing of Joss Whedon, who all he tried to do was to take a terrible set of circumstances and give something to the audience the best he could under ridiculous restraints and circumstances. So yes, to quote the Iron Man movie, he made his in a cave with a box of scraps. That's basically what he did. Given, we want you to redo a big chunk of this movie and you're not getting any extra time. We still got to hit our release date. And he did it. And I thought under those circumstances, 99% of other movie makers would have done a much worse job than he did. And that's why I think even if you are a big proponent of the Snyder Cut and all that kind of stuff, you should be taking your hat in your hand and saying, thank you, Joss Whedon. Because if it wasn't for him, we probably wouldn't even got a movie at all. And the whole DCU might have suffered a lot more. It might have suffered a lot more. So whether you liked or didn't like the Justice League theatrical cut, I personally like it. Whether you liked or didn't like, you got to pay respect to what it is Joss Whedon did under the circumstances of which he did it. The fact that he gets so much shit for it, I think is appalling. I think it's absolutely appalling. People treat him like he created the situation. He didn't. He just tried to salvage it the best he could. And I think he deserves more credit. Anyway, that's just me. All right. Typhoon writes, I've got a movie gift card that I got in March from driving safely at work. Nice. Right as the theaters all shut down. It's been burning a hole in my wallet. I cannot wait for Tenet. And it sounds like you're going to be able to use that gift card if it applies to Regal Cinemas. It sounds like you're going to be able to apply that at Regal Cinemas. Again, this situation could change. We could see things get worse and maybe Cineworld has to backtrack on that. Don't know. But as of right now, Tenet is scheduled to come out July 12th. And the second biggest movie theater chain in the world just said, we're going to be open in July. So let's see. Let's hold our breath. Let's cross our fingers and hope things go smoothly. But things look like they're heading in a good direction. All right. DJ Riley writes, hey, John and Aaron, what's good? Just hope you guys and significant others are safe and well. What are some of your favorite guilty pleasure movies? I have to say mine are The Wood starring Omar Epps and Like Mike starring Lil Bow Wow and Morris Chestnut. Like Mike, yeah, I didn't like that one, which makes it a great pick for a guilty pleasure movie. I always say the same ones. My guilty pleasure movies are Armageddon is definitely one of them. I know a lot of people hate Armageddon. I get it. Michael Bay, I get it, but I've always liked that movie. I've always liked it. So that's a guilty pleasure of mine. The other one is Vanilla Ice's Cool as Ice. It is a horrible, horrible, one of the worst movies ever made. But there's something so infinitely entertaining about it, unintentionally entertaining, but entertaining nonetheless, that Vanilla Ice's movie, Cool as Ice, starring one of the stars of the movie is the dad from Family Ties, Michael something or other. I can't remember his last name. He was also in Tremors, but I can't remember his name right now. Anyway, those are my guilty pleasure movies. Those are mine. Absolutely, unabashedly, those are my guilty pleasure movies, DJ. James Jones writes, how the living hell does Suicide Squad have a sequel? The movie was trash, and Shazam, a movie that barely made any money, and it's been almost 8 years since a Man of Steel sequel. The MCU treats Ant-Man better than the greatest hero of all time. Pathetic. Love the show. Well, Suicide Squad made a lot of money. And there was good stuff in there. Again, I acknowledge that Suicide Squad is a hot mess of a movie. But I was still entertained. I walked out with a smile on my face. So I still appreciated it. But the fact of the matter is it overperformed at the box office and made a lot of money. Actually made a lot more money than Man of Steel did. So hold on a second. So Suicide Squad, I believe it made over 800. It made, not over. It made $746 million. Still significantly more than Man of Steel did. More than Man of Steel did. So, yeah, that's why there. Shazam was a much better received movie. Listen, Man of Steel is my favorite DCEU film. I like it more than Shazam. But Shazam was great, and Shazam had a much higher audience and critic rating than Man of Steel did. So they know that they're onto something with Shazam, and at least it broke even. So they know they're onto something with Shazam, and they know that they can make another one, and it's probably going to make more money this time around because the audiences and critics really liked it. And they liked it inexplicably more than they liked Man of Steel. What are you going to do? But I'll never, I don't know. Look, to a degree, I get it because they tried doing the DCEU as Superman and Batman centric. And they did not get the results they wanted. I get that. I do. It's unfortunate. I love Man of Steel. It's one of the greatest comic book movies of all time. I like Batman versus Superman, and I like Justice League. But I also understand from their point of view, they tried doing a Superman and Batman centric universe, and they were not getting the results they wanted. They were not getting the audience responses they wanted. They were not getting the critical response that they wanted, and they were not getting the box office results that they wanted. it's easy for somebody like me to just kick my feet and whine and complain, going, but Man of Steel is one of the greatest movies ever. Make another one. It's easy for me to do that. But I also have to be pragmatic, right? The studios have to be more pragmatic. They tried a certain way. They weren't getting the results. So they changed directions. And guess what? You can't argue they've been getting better results. When you look at Aquaman and Shazam and Birds of Prey notwithstanding, and Joker, you've got now billion-dollar films that they've never had before. You're getting much bigger critic responses than they've ever got before, and they're getting much higher audience approvals than they ever got before. It doesn't matter how much I whine and bitch and complain and moan about Man of Steel and all. It doesn't matter. The bottom line is they changed directions. They pivoted away from Superman, and the results have been better. So I get it. It doesn't change what I want. I want Henry Cavill as Superman. I want Ben Affleck as Batman. I want a Man of Steel too. It doesn't change what I want, but sometimes what I want and what I understand are the practical, pragmatic things that a studio needs to do are in conflict with each other. So I think you also have to take a step back, take a deep breath and go, okay, I get it from the studio's perspective why they may have pivoted. I wish they hadn't have. But I get it. And maybe they're going to try something new now. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see, James. All right. Next up here. Rich McConnell writes. Where are we at? Rich McConnell writes, hey, John, with HBO Max securing the licensing for the Harry Potter films, is there a chance they were preoccupied with getting that deal done right up until launch, that they ran out of time to get a deal worked out with Amazon and Roku? No, because those are different people doing different deals. Like when you're having people working out the content negotiations, that's one group of people. The people working out their distribution part of it is another group of people. There is, and no, just the working out the negotiations for one film franchise when they've had years to do it, did not interfere with what their distribution angle was at the time and where their channel was going to be available. So no, the getting the rights to the Harry Potter stuff or any of the other movies gives them no excuse for not having their platform deals in place, because those are different things they got to do. Those are different groups of people that handle that, and there's just no excuse. There's no excuse for it. None. All right. Ryan Trabucco writes, hey, John, The Wrap is reporting that HBO Max had 4 times less downloads in its first day release than Quibi. I haven't read that. Ouch. I downloaded HBO Max yesterday, and yeah, the interface is not good. Well, I mean, I guess true. It's not terribly surprising. I couldn't download it because it's not available on Roku, and my household is a Roku household. So yeah, I'm not terribly surprised. My buddy is an Amazon Fire Stick household. All of his TV stuff, Amazon Fire Stick. Guess where you can't download the HBO Max app? On Amazon Fire Stick. So when you wipe out more than half of the available streaming platforms, of course your numbers are going to be low. This isn't a good look. Look, I'm not saying that HBO Max can't rebound. Of course they can. And you guys know how excited I've been for HBO Max. I've been like every day for months now. I've been HBO Max. I can't wait for HBO Max. But they've dropped the ball here. They have fumbled the ball badly coming out of the gate. So listen, but they are HBO. They can turn this around. I'm not saying that they won't. I hope that they do. I'm looking forward to being an HBO Max subscriber whenever they get off their asses and make it available on the actual streaming platforms that people use. But when they do, I'm looking forward to having it. So here's hoping they turn things around, dude. All right. And the thing about the interface, I've had other people tell me the interface isn't good either. All right. Rob writes, John, I've long suspected the fever against Man of Steel and Zack's DCU has less to do with taste and more to do with philosophical climate of the day. It seems the MCU has more humanistic appeal than does Zack Snyder's DCU. Thus, it's easily palatable. What say ye? Nope, I don't agree. Listen, what we as film fans can't do is make excuses as to why other people like or dislike something. But that is a very human thing. It's the first reaction I get. Well, you didn't like Man of Steel. Well, you just didn't like it because of this. No, we've got to accept that they just watched it and they didn't like it. It didn't work for them. I mean, even after I put out my case for Man of Steel video, do you know how many messages I got from people saying how much they think Man of Steel sucks? And I can't make any excuses for them. It's just they watched it and it didn't work for them. That's the subjectivity of film. And no matter how much I like Man of Steel, I will never begrudge anybody who doesn't. Because that's the nature of movies. Right? Any more than I don't want somebody to begrudge me the fact that I'm not a big fan of the original Blade Runner. What? Yeah, I know. I'm in the vast minority on that, but I gotta be honest, I'm not a big fan of Blade Runner. And what I don't appreciate and what I don't want to have happen is people just start making excuses. Oh, well then, John, you just didn't understand Blade Runner, or you just don't like Harrison Ford, or you just don't like rain, and there's a lot of rain in the movie. Therefore, that's why you didn't like it. No. Shut the F up. I just didn't like it because it didn't work for me. That's all. It's just that simple. And I love that other people like it. That's great. And I acknowledge it's one of the all-time sci-fi classics. And I wish I liked it more than I did. I like Blade Runner 2049. I love that movie, but I didn't like the original Blade. And so whereas I don't appreciate people making, well, yeah, you just didn't appreciate it because of this. No. It just didn't work for me. That's all. So I want to make sure, because I know I've fallen into this trap myself. I think we all have. I just don't want to be one of those people that, since I don't appreciate it when people make excuses for when I don't like something that they do, I also don't want to make excuses for why other people don't like something that I do like. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? So I don't know. I just think at the end of the day, no matter how much I love Man of Steel and I think it's underrated and all that kind of stuff, if somebody didn't like it, then they didn't like it. And I just accept that. That's cool. There are people who don't like the original Star Wars trilogy. I may think they're insane, but I just respect that. You know, if you don't like it, you don't like it. That sucks. I wish you did, but you don't, and that's okay. So yeah, I just don't want us to get into the habit of starting to formulate theories and excuses as to what's the real meaning people didn't like the movies because they watched it and they didn't like it. It's just that simple. It really is just that simple. And that's something that we as fans of those films just have to accept. Just like fans of Star Wars have to accept it. Fans of Marvel have to accept it. Fans of Harry Potter have to accept it. I think we just got to accept that and kind of move on from it. Anyway. All right. Arun Baburaj writes, hey, Johnson, so many shows and movies from the DC universe are coming over to HBO Max. Why not HBO Max merge with the current DC streaming service? Would this not also be a great rival for Disney Plus, Netflix, Prime, etc.? Also, HBO Max has original content and consumers win. Well, listen, first of all, DC universe streaming service is this big. It's this big. It does not have that big of a user base. It's not like it's a major powerhouse, and if they make it merge with HBO Max, it becomes the power. But I have been saying for a long time, there's no reason for the DC streaming service to exist. There's no reason for it to exist anymore. They're already outsourcing a lot of the content from a lot of the original content from DC streaming service onto other platforms, including HBO Max, Doom Patrol, for example, that there's just no purpose anymore for the DC streaming service to exist. I fully expect within the next 6 months, I don't know this, I'm just speculating, just be clear, but I fully expect within the next 6 months, the DC Universe app will just be merged into the HBO Max app. I'm just expecting that to come because they're already outsourcing all their original content. So, yeah. The only reason I still have it is because I want to watch Harley Quinn Season 2. I can watch Harley Quinn Season 1 on another network now, but I'm still watching Harley Quinn Season 2. That's the only reason I still have DC Universe. Once Harley Quinn Season 2 is done, I'm unsubscribing from the DC Universe because there's no point in having it. So yeah, I fully expect, Arun, that at some point it's just going to merge in with HBO Max. All right. Peter Pacheco writes, on your conversation about the motion capture, is Mark Ruffalo when he is normal as Banner, but turns into Hulk, and as he does the motion capture for that, I believe. So is he an actor or is he a motion capture person? Thanks and keep up the good work. Well, listen, the rules we were talking about earlier that the Golden Globes are implementing about how, you can't be faceless in it and be no. Well, that doesn't really apply to Mark Ruffalo because he is both physically in the movie as himself, doing the acting, and he is behind the motion capture of that. So that kind of puts him in a different category, right? That's not the same thing as, say, an Andy Serkis being Gollum or Caesar or King Kong as he was. It's not the same thing because he is actually in the movie, acting in the movie. So it's kind of puts him in a little bit of a different category. So it more marks him down as an actor in the film. Yes, he does do motion capture, but he's also a full-blown, full-fledged, by definition, actor in the film. And by the way, I think he's really good. I love him as Banner. I liked Ed Norton Jr. as well as Banner, but I really also quite like Mark Ruffalo's take on Banner. All right. Evan Ryan writes, "Hey, John, what superhero character would you like to see get a resurrection like Deadpool? For me, it would be Gambit. Thanks." A resurrection? Well, I mean, Deadpool never died yet. Deadpool is still in the plans. They're going to make another Deadpool movie. Where it's going to be, whether it's in the MCU or outside of the MCU, whether it's going to be rated R or rated PG-13, that stuff we don't know yet. But another Deadpool is coming. Another Deadpool is coming. So one that came, died, and went away, and that we would like to see come back. Well, Gambit never really had his own original one. I mean, they were obviously planning on one with Channing Tatum. That fell apart. I wouldn't mind a Gambit movie. And by the way, I'm in the minority here, but I also wouldn't mind a Gambit movie with Channing Tatum, which is funny because I used to think Channing Tatum was the worst actor in Hollywood, period, bar none. Yeah, a lot of years ago, I used to think he was the absolute worst actor in Hollywood getting work. But he got better and better and better and better and better. And now it's to the point that I actually really look forward to seeing him in movies, where I didn't feel that way before. But now I do. And I actually think he would be a pretty good Gambit. So Gambit's not a bad one. I have always been fascinated, although I don't know if it'll work commercially. I've always been fascinated and obsessed with the idea of getting a Bishop movie. Bishop from the X-Men. I would love a Bishop movie. Love that character. I've always loved Bishop. Anyway. Okay, next up, James Dean. Guys, I can't go over 3 hours, so I'm going to go through these last remaining questions as fast as I can here, okay? James D writes, "Hey, John and Aaron, how long do you think the theaters will take between shows to clean up the room once they open back up? It seems to me like it should take a while to properly clean and disinfect the space. Your thoughts? Love the show." I think you can do it in under an hour. Actually, if you have the right amount of people doing it and you coordinate properly, you can probably get it done in a half hour. You can probably, because remember, it's a movie theater. It's not a football stadium. But if you have like a team of 6 people getting in the theater, like as soon as that movie ends, boom, 6 people in there, and they've got their routine and they know exactly what each one of them are supposed to do. I think you could probably have that done in about a half hour. So you give another 15 minutes for buffer. So I say 45 minutes to an hour in between showtimes. Like right now, you get like 10 minutes in between showtimes. But 45 minutes to an hour between showtimes, if they properly train their staff on how to do it effectively and efficiently, I don't think it'll take too much more time than that. Again, movie theaters aren't football stadiums. I mean, you're talking about 300 seats, 100 seats, 400 seats. I mean, the bigger the theater, the little bit longer it'll take. But for those size, I think they could blow through in about a half hour. So I say 45 minutes to an hour to give you a little bit of buffer, and I think you should be good. If they do it right. If they do it right. All right, CP writes, "Would you had preferred JJ had done 100% of the Disney Star Wars trilogy or Star Trek trilogy?" Star Wars. Because that would have corrected the biggest weakness to me. I like the Disney Star Wars films, except for The Rise of Skywalker. But the biggest weakness with the Disney era trilogy, and I explained this in my editorial video that I did on this, was the fact that there was no overall plan. They just winged it from movie to movie, and there was no overall plan, and that ultimately caught up with them and bit them in the ass. If J.J. Abrams, well, J.J. isn't my favorite director in the world, but if J.J. Abrams, one director, had been handed that trilogy so he could sit down and chart out what his entire story was going to be, so all 3 movies were planned out before they started going, I think it would have improved it drastically. Even though I love The Force Awakens, and I like The Last Jedi, but I think it would have improved the overall trilogy amazingly, and so I'll go with JJ on Star Wars. All right, an anonymous viewer writes, "I read somewhere on the IMDb trivia on Disney's The Hunchback of Notre Dame that Esmeralda was going to kill Judge Frollo. Would parents get upset and cause controversy? If the live-action remake goes PG-13, do you think they'll use it?" You gotta remember, the animated thing is a completely different movie. So I don't think anything is going to determine what they would do in a live action film. That animated, we've talked about this before. That Hunchback movie, animated movie, was dark. That was a dark movie. And if she had killed Frollo, I don't think that would have changed the darkness of it at all. It was already pretty damn dark. I mean, really, when you go back and watch that now, that is not in the same category as a lot of the other Disney animated fare. It's a very different thing, and it really, really was quite dark. So, but I don't think it'll affect what they do in the live action film at all. The live action interpretation iteration will be its own thing, and so it'll be but I don't see them making too many changes that way myself. But who knows? But yeah, man, go back and watch that movie again. It is dark. All right, Jedi Koth writes, I have HBO Max on Xbox and have been enjoying it. The DC content like Doom Patrol, which I didn't have before, has been awesome. Doom Patrol is so great. They do have new shows like Anna Kendrick's Love Life, plus HBO content and WB movies. Wouldn't call it awful in my experience. Well, that's good to hear. Like I said, I've been hearing nothing but negative stuff from people about it. Like, people are really, really turned off by it. And that's just the reaction I've been hearing from people and hearing from people and all that kind of stuff, which is unfortunate because I've been very, very excited about the launch of HBO Max. So I'm glad to hear somebody who's having at least a good time with it. Maybe it's your interface. I'd be curious to know what you think about the interface, because I've been hearing a lot of complaints about the user interface. Again, I haven't seen it yet myself because it's not on Roku, but it is what it is. But I'm glad you've been able to use it, Jedi Koth, and thank you for sending in your thoughts on it. I appreciate that, to balance it out a little bit. I like that. All right, James L.H. writes, hey, John, just to let you know, HBO Max will only be available in selected parts of Europe when released, as other parts of Europe, including here in the UK, HBO have had a long-term deal with Sky, which renewed last year for 5 years. That makes sense. Yeah. See, often with these different territories, like, it's why Disney Plus had to roll out in different countries at different times. It's why certain movies are available on one streaming service in one country, but it's not available in that same streaming service in a different country. It's all about territorial rights, everything from the broadcasters, the distributors, the content rights, all that kind of stuff. It's a really tangled web. So, James, thank you for pointing that out. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate that. Well done. I always love it when our viewers are able to shed more light on things. That's great. Thank you, James LH. Kenna writes, do you think they're trying to use Superman like Marvel's Iron Man to bind the new DCU together? No. I mean, it's a very romantic idea, and I like the idea, but no, I don't. I hope I'm wrong, because I think that's a great idea. I think it should all be revolving around Batman and Superman. Those are the, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. That's the trilogy. That's the Trinity. That's the holy trinity of the DC universe. I think it should all be based around them. But I don't think that's what they're doing. I hope you're right. I just don't think that's what they're doing. Nathan Taylor writes, my throat's starting to go, guys. I'll get through as many as I can here. I always found it cool that Kevin Costner and Russell Crowe both played Robin Hood. Oh, that's true. They both played Robin Hood in movies and played Superman's two dads in Man of Steel. I didn't even think about that. You're right. Of course, the difference is the Kevin Costner Robin Hood was awesome. Russell Crowe's Robin Hood was terrible. Oh, and it hurts me to say that, because Russell Crowe is maybe my favorite actor. And I love him, but that Robin Hood movie was so bad. Oh, but I didn't even think about that connection between the two of them. Well said, sir. All right, Wakanda Forever writes, man, this is going to be good. They broke the torch on the Statue of Liberty. He got thrown through a Marlboro truck. Did that guy on the roller skates just roll by KFC? Oh, there goes Coca-Cola sign. No product placement there. LOL, have a good one. I know we're talking about something that happened in a movie at some point. Listen, Wakanda Forever. If you're going to write in references to things, you got to also include what it is too, because I know that's to a movie of some point, but I don't know. It sounds like, is that Superman 2? Is that Superman 2 that's to? Anyway, I don't know for sure, so I can't comment too much. Jonah writes, hey, John, how did you get your very own Henry Cavill? It's actually really simple. The way I got the Henry Cavill was, I know a theater owner. You know my connection with AMC. I knew a bunch of theater managers, and so, just one of the theater managers one time was like, oh, you like Superman? Like, they got all this promotional material. Like, a lot of this type of promotional material has to get sent back when it's done, but a lot of it just gets tossed. And so I got that. And then I bought a bunch of others as well, but that one got given to me as a gift. All right. Ben Rayner writes, my throat is almost gone here, guys. Hey, John, great show today. I love Justice League, and it is in my top 2 DCU movies. I'm going to watch Snyder Cut, but I'm not dying to see it. We'll go in with an open mind, though. Hopefully, I'll be watching on my Roku by then. Yeah, I got to believe by 2021, they got to have it on Roku. Yeah, no, to me, it's not even close. It's Man of Steel, everything else. And then not down here. Still, I still like all the other DCU stuff, but it's Man of Steel, everything else. Like Man of Steel is so head and shoulders to me above all the other stuff in the DCU. It's just freaking brilliant. I just, the more time that passes and the more that I watch it, the more and more I am in love with that movie. I don't think it's a top 3 comic book movie of all time, but the more and more I watch it, the more and more I love it. It's just an incredible thing. And I'm sure, Ben, by 2021, you and I will get to watch it on our Roku devices. Here's hoping. All right. Wakanda Forever. And then, guys, I said I would get through all the questions, but I'm about to lose my voice. I can't go anymore. I'm sorry about that. We've been going almost 3 hours. The Wakanda Forever writes, words of wisdom, drop that zero and get with the hero. That is, of course, that one I know. That is from Vanilla Ice's Cool as Ice that I was just referencing. Drop the zero and get with the hero. Everyone stay safe, healthy, and productive for yourself and others. John, thank you for the show and all that you do. We will get through this together, Wakandan Forever. And I love it when anybody wants to throw in a little bit of a quote there from Cool as Ice, because Cool as Ice is just the coolest. It's so great. So thank you for that. All right, guys, listen, there are still a couple of questions left, but I literally, you know what? Okay, my throat's gone, but there's only 2 questions left. Okay, I'll do my best here. Taki75 writes, don't hate me, but every time you talk about Man of Steel, I remember a Greek critic who said that in Pa Kent's death scene, Kevin Costner looked like a guy who couldn't decide what condiment to put on his hot dog. Hey, listen, everybody experiences movies and movie scenes in their own way. And if that's how it struck that particular Greek critic, then that's how it struck that particular Greek critic. I think the scene is vastly misunderstood and one of the best scenes, if not the most pivotal scene in the entire movie. And I explained that why I believe that's the case in my Case for Man of Steel video. Again, you should go. I'm really pimping that video today, but Jonathan and I worked very hard on that video, so please do go check it out. All right, final question of the day. Jonah writes, John, isn't it at least worth discussing why people may not like certain movies? When I look at the DCU, I can see why the mainstream weren't on board with the Snyder's films. I can see why they were bored by them, and do agree films lacked fun. Cheers. Oh no, listen, when I look at movies like Suicide Squad, right? I can see in the movies and acknowledge and talk about, okay, I get why you wouldn't like that. And I recognize and agree that there are certain problems here and there. Yes. What I mean though is, a lot of times people try to make excuses that are outside of the movie, right? So things like, here, a classic one. You just didn't get it. Oh no, shut up. We got it. We understood the movie and we just didn't like it. It's when we make excuses that fall outside of the pros and cons of the movie itself. You just don't like it because you're biased against that director. No, I just watched the movie and I didn't like it. You just didn't like it because your name is Billy and there's a guy named Billy in the movie that isn't a good guy. So that's why you didn't like the movie. No, I just didn't. So yeah, we can get into the discussions about the elements of the film. So we can talk about, that the Superman in Man of Steel, for instance, was not the traditional portrayal of Superman as far as the happy-go-lucky, gosh, mom and dad. And there are people who specifically point to saying that's why we didn't like it. There are certain people who say they had certain expectations of what a Superman would be like, and that didn't work for them. Okay, I get it. In Suicide Squad, there are a lot of people who are thrown off by the editing and think the editing style was just messy and it pulled them out of the movie and it didn't work for them. I can see that. And that's worth discussing because I agree that I think that was one of the problems of the movie. So it's fine to discuss and talk about elements in the movie itself that people didn't like and discussing the merits of those things. Absolutely. But when we get into what happens a lot of times is we get into people who just make excuses that fall outside of the parameters of the movie itself. You only liked it because of this. You only disliked it because of this and all that kind of stuff. And it's that stuff that we've all been guilty of, this guy included. We've all been guilty of it. I just think it's something that we as film fans really need to keep an eye on, that when are we actually engaging in a film discussion and when are we trying to create fake excuses for why somebody else just doesn't think the way we do? And that is a trap we all fall into, including me. And it's just something I think we need to keep our eyes on. All right, guys, that will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here and being a part of the show today, guys. Listen, the fact that you take time out of your day to be a part here is an amazing honor, so thank you for that. Thanks to Aaron Cummings for being here, and a special thank you to all of you guys who sent in the questions, not just because you gave us great fun things to talk about, but also you supported the channel while you did it. And all of us here, thank you for that. And just a reminder, you can already, even now, start sending in questions for tomorrow's show. You don't have to wait for the show to go live. You can go anytime over to streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip, send it in, and yours will be one of the first questions that get answered on the next day's show. Guys, make sure you come back and join me and Robert Meyer Burnett tomorrow for our Friday edition of the show. I'm sure we'll have a bunch of fun things to talk about. Guys, please do the fourth big thing. Stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and please take care of the people around you. And if we do, we're all going to be just fine. That'll do it for me for now, guys. Thanks a lot for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.